Victory Monday, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. The Kansas City Chiefs, for the second time in 4 years and the third time in franchise history, are world champions. Super Bowl 57 champion Kansas City Chiefs. And we will be talking all about Super Bowl 57 over the course of the next 3 hours. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He is Dan Lucero, and we are here with you until 6 o'clock tonight, recapping an all-time great Super Bowl. Drama from beginning to end, a comeback for the ages, a tremendous battle of quarterbacks, Mahomes and Hurts. Great coaching on display from one coach in the first half and the other coach in the second half. Defensive effort was humongous for the Chiefs. The offensive line was as good as it has been all season long. In fact, adjusting for opponent, that is the best that the Chiefs' offensive line has been all season long. We are going to get to every single part of the Super Bowl coming up today. We'll recap the whole thing here in just a moment. The biggest moments of the game, the biggest performances. What did we get right when we predicted this game? And what did we maybe miss the mark on when we were projecting and prognosticating for this game over the course of the last week? Also this hour, we'll get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. I imagine that is mostly going to be Super Bowl related too. Also, Matt Verderame is going to join us, our NFL insider from fansided.com. He'll stop by. He was down there in Glendale for the Super Bowl. We'll see if the weather in Glendale beat the Miami weather from a few years ago and get his takes on everything that happened for the Chiefs this weekend. We've got a lot to get to when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. He is now on Mount Olympus. He is there in the Pantheon. There is no touching his credentials at this point. He could have an extremely mediocre, by his standards, rest of his career, the next decade, and there is no touching the credentials that he has already earned. Now, that's not going to happen because he's the best quarterback in the NFL.
And because he's getting better.
Getting better.
He's getting better. He's going to get better. He will be 27 on opening day of the 2023 NFL season. This is going to get better.
It's incredible. It really, really is.
And it's going to be really, really good for a really long time.
So we will talk all about Patrick Mahomes. We've got a lot of the 4 o'clock hour dedicated to the one and only QB1, number 15, Patrick Mahomes. We'll also get to, there's just so much to get to. Jalen Hurts was awesome. We would be talking, had the game gone the opposite way, if there had been a minute left and the Eagles had gone down and scored a touchdown, or if the 2-point conversion situations at the end of the game had maybe changed, we're talking about how the NFL has its next superstar in Jalen Hurts. He was awesome in the game. The Eagles had a couple of huge plays. They played really well. They just didn't play quite as well as the Kansas City Chiefs did. There's so much that we're going to get to in all of the course of the next 3 hours. We'll talk a little halftime show. You know, we got to get to all the other fun stuff and pizzazz that comes with the Super Bowl. We'll get to the commercials as well, all that fun stuff. KU and K-State played this weekend. KU won. K-State lost. It was not good. The former was good.
Maybe we'll get there.
Yeah,
maybe.
We will. I will commit to this. We will mention the words KU and K-State at some point in the next 3 hours. That is my promise to you.
We can do that.
It might be literally mere seconds of it, but that is what I can promise today.
That is a Brendan Dworzinski guarantee.
You can't trust that. I don't know what you can trust. Of course, you are welcome to be a part of the show. We want you. We are direly hoping for you to be a part of this show today. We want to know your thoughts on the Chiefs winning Super Bowl 57. Hit us up on the Big O Tires text line. You know the number, 785-272-9429. That is the text line number. Text in with your thoughts on the game, favorite moment, favorite play, biggest moment, whatever. You can also watch us on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the YouTube channel. We are video streaming the show live right now. You can also hop into the comment section on the YouTube and, again, let us know your thoughts on everything that happened yesterday.
Tell us how you reacted when the game ended, when that last pass from Jalen Hurts fell incomplete, or tell us how you reacted when Harrison Butker's game-winning field goal went through the big sticks with 8 seconds to play. I want to know what that reaction was like at your Super Bowl party or in your home. Did you go out and light stuff on fire, blow some stuff up? What did you do? I can tell you in the Lucero household, my wife almost broke 3 of my ribs. She was so excited when that last pass hit the turf, and a season full of hope and expectation, but also some trepidation at times, culminated in a championship that she just absolutely squeezed the heck out of me. And just glad that my ribs are still intact, because that's a hug I'll remember for a very long time, because we watched we had just met each other, so we didn't watch Super Bowl 54 together. So this is the first one that we actually got to watch together that the Chiefs won. So that's what I'll remember from it, but we want to know what you're going to remember from that championship moment here in 2023. So again, the text line is 785-272-9429. Leave a comment in the YouTube. Want to know how you reacted in the final seconds.
So let's start, because it's almost hard to know where to start, because there is so much that happened. And again, we'll get to a lot of Patrick Mahomes here in the next few minutes, and we've got a lot of next hour dedicated just to QB1. What to you was the moment when you thought the Chiefs are winning this game? We've played this game so many times, because the Chiefs have now, in the Mahomes era, been down by 10 plus points 24 times, and they've won 14 of them, many of them in the playoffs, like Super Bowl 54, like
right.
The first round of the playoffs, the divisional round of the playoffs that same year, the 2019 season into the 2020 playoffs. So many instances of these comebacks for the Chiefs, and so many times we have talked about how, that I'm not worried about this. Like, the Chiefs are going to be fine. What was the moment for you where you felt like, okay, this team is going to be just fine?
Honestly, it was probably the scramble for Mahomes to get inside the 10-yard line on their first drive out of the locker room. Going into halftime, it's not just that they were down 10, because, again, 10-point deficits are nothing to Patrick Mahomes, which is just a crazy thing to say. And they're nothing to this Chiefs team. But, man, I have to confess, the look of pain and anguish in Patrick Mahomes' face on the sideline after he got tripped up on that 3rd and long and was slow to get up and hopped to the sideline, that looked to me like the face of a player who felt like he was in trouble. That looked to me like fear, that all of the things that Mahomes believed he could do and all of the things that he had planned to do in this game were suddenly in question. That was a very scary moment. I'm sure it was probably a scary moment in a lot of dens and living rooms and bars and watch parties across this area. But when he came out in the 3rd quarter, he made 2 plays on that opening drive. One of them was the throw that Kelsey scooped off the turf, where I think it's Fletcher Cox, has Mahomes wrapped up, and Mahomes makes the throw, and Kelsey makes that great scooping, stumbling catch for a first down. And then on the scramble, where the Chiefs pick up the 1st and goal, and they would score 2 plays later on the Pacheco touchdown run, that was the confirmation that either the adrenaline or the drugs or both had kicked in, and that Patrick Mahomes was going to be able to play that second half of football the way he plays pretty much every other half of football, which meant in my mind, I thought they were going to win the game, because I talked all week about, as long as this game was close into the 4th quarter, I thought Mahomes would make one more play. That's just the faith I have, and the justified faith that we have in number 15, that he's going to make one more play, and he's going to get that one more opportunity to go win a football game. And when I had the confirmation that the ankle wasn't going to bother him, that he was going to be able to do all of the things that make him great and was not going to be compromised by that little tweak at the end of the first half, I can't say I was convinced they had it in the bag, but that was when I knew it was likely. I really felt at that moment, oh, they're going to win this thing, because Patrick Mahomes was at ramming speed. And I'll take that guy, whatever you want to line up against him. The number 1 pass defense in the league, a 10-point deficit, all of these things. As long as I've got Patrick Mahomes, I think I'm going to win. And that was confirmation, that drive and those 2 plays in particular, that confirmed that Mahomes was not going to be compromised. He was not going to be denied.
I think on that touchdown drive, just as a whole, the fact that it was a methodical type of drive, it didn't take a ton of time off the clock, but it was, 11 yards, 12 yards, 4-yard run. There was nothing huge and explosive about it. I mean, the play of the drive was that scooped up catch by Travis Kelce.
I think 6 of the 10 plays were runs.
Yeah.
Or plays to the running backs.
I believe you are correct. I've got it in front of me right here. I believe you are right on that number. There was plenty of Pacheco, McKinnon. The first 3 plays were all runs. So for the first 3 plays to get that first down, I thought, okay, I am a little bit concerned because they are not trusting that ankle if they're going to run it 3 plays in a row. Then they start going with the pass. You have the one to Kelce for 11 yards. Sky Moore jet sweep. Then you've got Justin Watson who ends up making a catch. McKinnon again. You've got all, these just little chunk plays, not big plays, nothing explosive, but the fact that they were able to move the ball a different way down the field, I thought, okay, at the very least, the Chiefs are going to be okay. They're going to be in this game one way or the other. The time that I knew the Chiefs were going to win the game was when the Chiefs defense was on the field. The Eagles had a 17-play, 60-yard drive that took 7 minutes and 45 seconds off the clock. If they get a touchdown there, that is massive. That's a 2-score game. You ate up a ton of time. That's what the Eagles want to do. That's that anaconda plan we were talking about last week. They got a field goal out of it. So instead of putting the pressure on the Chiefs, they put a massive amount of pressure on themselves by settling for that field goal, because going up by 6, 1 touchdown and an extra point, you're losing. That drive did way more to hurt the Eagles than it did to help. I mean, that was like peak Paul Johnson at Navy days. That's the kind of drive that was, just with different play calls. And yet they put themselves behind the 8 ball. It was, okay, that's a short-term gain, truly a short-term gain for a long-term problem.
And it's fascinating in that spot. So the Chiefs made a big play on that 3rd down.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a broader topic of discussion about how the Eagles play and how that changes how the terms of a football game, because everywhere on the field is 4-down territory. They play with 4 downs. They play with all 4 downs at all times. They don't think, oh, it's 3rd and 7, we've got to get 7. They think it's 3rd and 7, we can get 4 or 5 here, we'll probably go for it. And it just changes the way you have to defend, and it changes the importance of tackling and making sure that 4th down is not a manageable distance. And I thought that the story in the first half was going to be about the Eagles being bold on 4th down where the Chiefs weren't. Remember, the Chiefs had a 4th and 3 on their second drive. They didn't go for it. They sent out Harrison Butker. He doinked the field goal off the post. If you had, there will be a doink at plus 450 or plus 500, like you could bet on it at certain gambling houses, congrats to you. That paid off very nicely. There was a little bit of goodness in that moment, even though the Chiefs didn't score on that drive. The Eagles were the opposite. They were going for it on those 4th downs. They had the big long run by Hurts on a 4th down and 5 near midfield that led to them taking, I think it was a 21-14 lead at that point. They were the aggressor on 4th down. And then the second half, that changed a little bit. But it changed because the Chiefs made a big tackle. Nick Bolton made a great play in space on a 3rd down. I think it was a flare pass out to Miles Sanders. And it made 4th down just far enough away. And that drive had taken so long that Nick Sirianni looked at the situation and said, you know what? I got to send the kicking unit out. We got to take a 6-point lead here. I'm not going to go for it. And I bet in retrospect, he probably wishes he'd have gone for it.
I'm sure.
And I bet in retrospect, he might wish he'd have gone for it on 4th and 3 from his own 32 in the 4th quarter after they had fallen behind, rather than punt the ball back and give the Chiefs offense another chance. And it turned out the Chiefs offense didn't need to go very far to take an 8-point lead, because Kadarius Toney went out and submitted the longest punt return in the history of the Super Bowl. So that was a big deal for me. The Chiefs tackled well enough throughout the game, and they tackled in that big spot. Nick Bolton made a big play in that spot. Nick Bolton, if they gave a defensive MVP of the Super Bowl, I think it was him.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Nick Bolton.
Yeah.
I think he was super. And not just the scoop and score touchdown either. And gosh, he could have had 2. But I thought he was in the right spot and tackled really well throughout the game. He doesn't make that tackle. The Eagles probably go for it, probably keep that drive going. Maybe it turns into a touchdown drive that takes 9-10 minutes off the clock.
Yeah.
And then where are you left? You're chasing the game again, down by 10, and it gets a little harder. Not impossible for Mahomes, but it gets harder. So I think you've got a great point there. And the broader point being that even though they gave up 35 points, the most ever given up by a team to win the Super Bowl, I thought the Chiefs defense played a pretty good game. There were a couple of coverage busts that led to some deep balls down the field. Those were the plays we said, hey, if Jalen Hurts can make those with his bulky shoulder after kind of looking like maybe he couldn't make those throws in the first 2 rounds of the NFC playoffs, if he can make those throws, challenge him to make him. And if he does, you tip your cap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he did. All the credit in the world to him. But I thought in other situations, the Chiefs defense was pretty darn good. They had 2 sacks. They limited the impact of the running backs, the Eagles running backs on the ground game. I thought they were exceptional tackling in space, rallied to the ball, and did their part in giving the Chiefs offense a chance to score enough to win.
The Chiefs also didn't beat themselves. There was no point in this game where it really felt like the Chiefs had made a fatal mistake, whereas the Eagles made 2, really. And I don't think the Eagles played badly by any means. Now, they couldn't stop anyone defensively in the second half, but overall, I thought the Eagles played really well too. But the Eagles made those crucial mistakes when the Chiefs did not. And there was one in each half. The one in the first half, and Jalen Hurts was awesome. He was tremendous in this game.
He's that deal, man. And I had doubts about his health. He answered those questions affirmatively. He's that deal. Like, he's going to get himself one of these, it feels like.
Yes, I would agree with that, especially if he's got this kind of talent around him. And I brought up that we were going to ask the question, what were we right about going into this game? What were we wrong about? And I think I'm kind of in the middle here, that my whole big point the last half of last week was the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. The Eagles do not. That is why the Chiefs are going to win. The Eagles did not lose because of Jalen Hurts. Okay, so it's kind of right, kind of wrong on that one. Jalen Hurts was incredible. 300 passing yards, passing touchdown, 3 rushing touchdowns. He is not the reason they lost. But he did fumble. And you have to get lucky with fumbles. You know, the prolate spheroid that we talked about this year, that sometimes it just takes a lucky bounce, sometimes it takes an unlucky bounce. It went right to Nick Bolton, and he scooped it up and took it for a touchdown. That play doesn't happen. We may be talking about a completely different Super Bowl, because at that point of the game, the Eagles were cruising. They looked like they were in dominant control of the game at that point. That fumble kept the Chiefs in the game and kept it from being 21-7, 24-7, something like that going into halftime, or at least potentially that kind of score going into halftime. So that was the Eagles beating themselves to a degree. And then the other one was the punt. Pat McAfee broke this down on his show. This is where, you know, he got famous because he's the only dude who talks about special teams. But he drew it up and said Aaron Sipsauce, the punter, punted to the complete wrong direction. Not only was it a bad kick in and of itself, because it was a low line drive, which is generally the returnable kind of punt, he kicked it right when it was supposed to go left. And if you look at the play, all the linemen are angling to the left once they get off their blocks. The gunners, the near side, he's running straight. The far side gunner is coming across the field. He released inside. Everyone is going left. The punt went low to the right. So, as Tony brought it upfield, all the dudes who had started left had to come back and overcorrect. When that happens, the Chiefs barely had to block. They had all their dudes just waiting, and Tony said, okay, look at all this space. He did a good job avoiding that first tackle because he nearly went down. He stayed on his feet. He comes all the way around. That was the Chiefs taking advantage of the Eagles making a fatal mistake. And sometimes that is what the best teams do. Shoot, that's what the Patriots did for 20 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes more so than they were incredible, they took advantage of Kyle Shanahan being an offensive coordinator or various other things that went wrong for plenty of teams during all those Super Bowls.
The little things, the details, tackling well, winning in the trenches, which I think the Chiefs did on both sides of the ball, winning the turnover battle, which the Chiefs did. They took the maximum advantage out of the one Philadelphia turnover, winning the battle on special teams. I know Butker missed a field goal, but he sure made the one that counted. And Tony's play was massive in this game. Clock management. Andy Reid beating the Philadelphia Eagles because he massaged the clock perfectly at the end of that football game. Irony is not dead, folks. Don't let them tell you different. It was a beautiful bit of irony that they managed that so well. Jerick McKinnon, as one texter points out from the 785 on the Big O Tires text line, how hard it had to be for Jerick McKinnon not to go in the end zone. There's only been 2 other times in the NFL where a team has let the other team score in a Super Bowl. And it's hard not to, even if you try not to. Like Ahmad Bradshaw in Super Bowl 46, he got to the 1-yard line. He was like, "Oh no!" and he just fell on his butt and
tumbled into the end zone.
Yeah,
right.
On accident. But no, Jerick McKinnon knew exactly what he was doing. And hell yeah, it has to be hard. Thinking about, I'm going to score the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. No, he slid. He did the right thing for his team to win. It's all about that attention to detail. And that's what you get from well-coached teams with great leadership. And that's what these Chiefs are and have been, and that's why they're champions again.
What was your big hit and what was your big miss for this game?
Big hit that the Chiefs, or rather that the Eagles defense might have been a little bit oversold, not playing against a real great schedule. They came in and had no sacks, 78 sacks in their first 19 games, did not have a sack last night. Give that Chiefs offensive line all the roses for that. They were a little oversold. All the great offenses they had played this year put up numbers, and the Chiefs put up big numbers on that Eagles defense, including 24 points on 4 drives in the second half. The only reason it wasn't 28 is because Jerick McKinnon fell down.
And I think while that Eagles secondary has good players, Darius Slay is an awesome player. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's a good player. They've got Avonte Maddox is a nice player. They've got good players back there. But the reason they were the number 1 passing defense in the NFL is because they had the best pass rush in the league. That's why Jonathan Gannon's defensive scheme leaves a lot to be desired. I think it's fair to say after that game last night. And the Chiefs, because they didn't allow a ton of pressure, were able to take advantage of it.
And the nice thing for the Chiefs, as far as they're concerned, is that might have cost Jonathan Gannon a head coaching job.
It likely did.
It kind of sounds like Arizona is now leaning in Lou Anarumo's direction. So not only do they cost Jonathan Gannon a head coaching job, they get Lou Anarumo out of the AFC.
Yeah.
That could be a double whammy, a triple whammy, maybe if you look at it like that for the Chiefs. My big miss, I thought Hurts's shoulder was going to impact their deep passing game, and no. I hand up, mea culpa. I was wrong on that. But again, credit Jalen Hurts. I think that was the right attitude for the Chiefs to have, is we're going to take away this short stuff. If you've got the arm, if you've got the juice in your arm to make those 35, 40-yard throws and beat us on those, we'll be surprised, because that's not what you've shown us in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, but we'll tip our cap a little bit. And Hurts made some big time throw. Man, he is good. He is good. You mentioned we would be talking about him as a new superstar if the Eagles had won. We should still be talking about him like that, because it sure ain't his fault they lost. He was awesome.
Major shades of Bret Hart beating Stone Cold and Stone Cold becoming the bigger star at WrestleMania 13. I'm sure somebody gets that reference somewhere. The other point to make about this, the end of this game, you know who the happiest man is that the Chiefs finished off the comeback and had that one last scoring drive in the final 5:15? L'Jarius Sneed. Holy cow, that is not the right time to have a coverage bust, my man.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Like, we would be, that would be the new Lynn Elliott name or something similar had the Eagles held on and won that game. We've got so much to get to with this. We do have to get to a commercial break. Matt Verderame is going to join us later on this hour to recap the game and talk all things Super Bowl. We will talk about Patrick Mahomes in particular. We probably should have talked more about Patrick Mahomes in this segment, because he is the one. And I don't know if he's going to win 7 Super Bowls in his career, but you can tell if someone is going to get to that Brady standard, it is going to be that guy wearing number 15 for Kansas City. We'll talk about him later on, every other element from this Super Bowl. It's all coming up on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. It's time for a quick round of the good, the bad, and the ugly to recap the Super Bowl weekend here on 580 Sports Talk before we get to Matt Verderame. Real quick, by the way, Dan, here's a funny for you. The Raiders did not trade or cut Derek Carr today, so they have less than 24 hours before his $40 million becomes fully guaranteed for next year.
They got to cut him.
You have to.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to.
And get nothing for him.
My good, because we've got so much football to talk about, I'll go away from football and confirm half of my promise. KU's Ernest Uday. He was awesome this weekend, and KU blew out Oklahoma.
He was.
He was incredible on Saturday.
He looked like baby Udoka.
He really did.
It was a pretty cool performance for Ernest Uday there in Norman. My good, I have in my man cave at the Lucero residence what I call the Wall of Champions. It has all of the memorabilia from my favorite teams that have won championships, the Seahawks in 2013, the Avalanche last year. And my wife, without me knowing about it, just ordered a pennant last night after the Chiefs won, bought a shirt and bought a pennant. And when I went upstairs, I had the thought, hey, you get to add to the Wall of Champions. And Abby said, way ahead of you. So I thought that was
all right.
Yeah, very cool moment. I thought it was cool to get to share that with her.
One other one, I had a losing record betting on the Super Bowl, betting props and all that, and still came out in the black because of how much I had on the Chiefs money line. So way to go, KC. My bad. Fox's camera work after the final snap was a disaster. Like, that's usually when you're going to show the quarterback, you're going to show the Gatorade bath, you're going to show this, that. They put the camera on Trent McDuffie for a really long time, just running around on the field. They missed Mahomes running on the field, missed the Gatorade bath. It was a disaster. I was like, come on, show me the good stuff. No, they didn't show me any of it.
My bad. Everybody's takes about James Bradbury's holding call on third down on the Chiefs' game-winning drive. Maybe it feels cheap to some people to have ended the game the way that it ended because that penalty was called, but James Bradbury held Juju Smith-Schuster. And if that's not the way that the game deserved to end, then maybe James Bradbury shouldn't have held Juju Smith-Schuster because James Bradbury held Juju Smith-Schuster. Source, James Bradbury. And if that's not good enough for you, I don't know what is.
And you know why he thought he was going to get away with it? Because he held Juju earlier in the game and got away with it.
Right.
Yeah, my ugly is people complaining about the referees. If you want to make the argument that was a crappy way for the Super Bowl to end because we wanted to see, one final drive, I can understand that point. I get if you're coming at it from that angle, but saying that the Chiefs were bailed out or the Chiefs got lucky or the script favored the Chiefs or some stupid nonsense like that, you're an idiot, okay? That just plain and simple. You are an idiot. He grabbed his whole jersey twice. They could have thrown 2 flags on the play. That's not why. The officials, I thought, were fine for the most part, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Some of the Eagles catch stuff was weird, but overall, I actually thought the officials did pretty well.
Yeah.
Complaining, though, ugly. Get out.
Yes. 100%. I will fulfill the other half of our promise for my ugly. K-State turned the ball over 23 times and lost in Lubbock.
That was bad.
They that was the only team they could have beaten playing that poorly and almost did. But yeah, hard to overcome 23 turnovers and your 2 best players going, I think it was 8 of 29 from the field and 2 of 14 from deep. That was a bad one. And the margin for error gone now for K-State. They got to win out.
We've got to take a break. Matt Verderame's up next on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us to recap a Kansas City Chiefs win over the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 57 is the one and only Matt Verderame from Fansided.com. Go check out all of his incredible work covering the National Football League at Fansided.com. You can find him on Twitter as well, at Matt Verderame. Matt, what is going to be the one thing about Super Bowl 57 that stands out in your mind among anything else?
I think just what it means from a historical perspective. I mean, Super Bowls, they're the game with the Roman numeral, right? I mean, they mean more than any other game because you remember those games forever. You don't remember the divisional games. You don't remember the wild card games. You remember the Super Bowls. And I think the Chiefs winning that game, they've now etched themselves into history in a way that you can only do when you win multiple titles. You know, they're not just a one-hit wonder. Mahomes will always be a quarterback who's now won multiple Super Bowls as a starter, which is, I think, he's the 13th guy to do it. And he's clearly better than most of those guys. Andy Reid now becomes at least worthy of conversation as a top 5 coach ever. So I think when I look back on that game, I'll just think about the legacy. If they lose that game, their legacy's kind of, well, they were a great team, but they lost 2 of those 3 Super Bowls. Now they won 2 of the 3, and the conversation changes drastically because of it.
Speaking to the Mahomes point in particular, there's so much to break down with this game. We'll try to get to as much of it as we can. But for Patrick Mahomes, we opened the show asking this question. When did you feel like the Chiefs were going to win this game? For me, it was actually when the Eagles were on the field, when they went 17 plays, nearly 8 minutes, and only got 3 points. For Dan, it was some of the phenomenal play of the offense early in that second half. What for you was it, Matt, that made you think, okay, the Chiefs are going to do this?
I felt the same as you. When the Eagles hit the kick a field goal to go 27-21, it just felt like Philly wasn't going to stop them. They didn't really stop them in the first half. The Chiefs were just never on the field. So in the second half of the game, really the Chiefs didn't have a ton of possessions in the second half either. They only had 4, but they scored 24 points. I thought once the Chiefs gave Mahomes the ball with a chance to take the lead in the fourth quarter, that the Eagles were in major trouble because they were going to have to actually stop them at some point. And I didn't think they could do it, and they never did. So I thought that third down tackle by Bolton to get the Chiefs off the field defensively, I thought that was huge. I thought it was really one of the real big plays of the game.
Obviously, Mahomes was deserving of the MVP. I know he didn't have a ton of yards, but he was just magical in the game, to use an overused but still accurate word. But outside of Patrick Mahomes, I think the best players of the game were the Chiefs' offensive line. Was that the best game that this group has played as a unit since they were completely overhauled following Super Bowl 55?
I mean, yeah, if you factor in the stage, no doubt. I mean, this is a team that was in Philadelphia that was the 3rd all-time in sacks in a season. If you factor in the playoffs, it's 78, they have 70 in the regular season. I mean, that Eagles defensive line is no joke. You're talking about 4 guys who had 11-plus sacks in a year, and they did nothing in that game. I think they hit Mahomes 5 total times, and they really, maybe once or twice came close to getting sacked. And Mahomes, that one throw he made a low to Kelsey, but really, they did nothing. I mean, they didn't get the Chiefs off the field in the run game. They didn't affect the Chiefs when you looked at the passing game. I mean, Mahomes, his QBR in that game was 96, and that's a direct reflection of that offensive line. I thought the key going into that game was Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown was magnificent. I don't think it could have been any better. Andrew Wiley, who everybody circled as the big question mark, and are they going to have to chip? They didn't even chip that much. They gave him a little help at times, not a lot. And the interior was the interior. They're the best interior line in football, and they showed why. I think when you factor in every part of that situation, yes, it's the most impressive game that offensive line has played. I would argue the Andy Reid era.
Our guest is Matt Verderame of Fansided, national NFL writer. He will break it all down on the Stacking the Box column in the Stacking the Box podcast. You can find them at fansided.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame, and you can hear him on Mondays at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, defensively for the Chiefs, even though the Eagles scored 35 points and had a couple of deep balls that they converted, one for the A.J. Brown touchdown, one to set up their last touchdown in the fourth quarter to Devontae Smith. I felt like the Chiefs defense actually did a lot of things that they needed to do to win the game, and that the Eagles put them in a tough spot because they go for every fourth down. So you have to defend them differently on third and fourth down. Am I wrong for thinking that the Chiefs defense actually maybe did some really, really good things and were integral to the success of the Chiefs last night?
I thought that the Chiefs defense made a couple of huge plays. The third down we talked about earlier, Nick Bolton scoop. By the way, Nick Bolton was the best defense player on the field for the team. It was unbelievable. But they, they had scoop and score. They had a couple of sacks. But I gotta also say, I mean, they couldn't get off field on third down. I mean, Philly was 11 of 18. Now they forced 18 third downs, but they just couldn't get off the field. And then Philadelphia was also 2 of 2 on fourth down. So I mean, if you combine third and fourth down, Philly was operating a 65% clip. Philly's yards per play was only 5.8, which is not great, but when you're facing a lead offense, I mean, it's not terrible. If you look at that over the course of the year, the Chiefs defense, they ranked 7th in yards per play at 5.1. 5.8 would definitely put them at the bottom of the heap. But look, I didn't think they played well on defense. I thought they gave up too many big plays. I thought they gave up too many third down conversions. They didn't get a lot of pressure, although against that offensive front, I understand that. I will say this. They made a couple of big plays, and they were very good against the running backs. Philadelphia, even including Hurts, only ran for 3.6 yards per attempt. So I thought they were very good in that regard. The Chiefs basically said, beat us throwing the ball. And to be fair, Hurts did. He was excellent throwing the ball, but the Chiefs made just enough plays to win the game.
How does Jalen Hurts, as the losing quarterback in this game, come out of this one in terms of his reputation and in terms of what his performance in last night's game makes feel possible for him and for the Eagles as long as he's their quarterback?
I think if you watched that game and you came away with any thought other than, man, Jalen Hurts is really impressive, you have a bias against the man. Whether you're a Cowboy fan or something, or you can't stand Philly. I mean, he was great. He was great. I mean, I know he had the one, he fumbled the ball with Bolton, but he was otherwise otherworldly. I mean, he threw for over 300 yards. He ran for 70 yards and 3 touchdowns. Threw for another one. I really went into the game thinking the Chiefs were going to win, and I thought the Chiefs may even win pretty handily because I thought the Chiefs' offensive line was very underrated going into the game. I thought the Chiefs would shut down the running attack as they would overwhelm with numbers at the line. And I thought the Chiefs would get a really good game offensively because I just thought Jonathan Gannon wasn't going to make the adjustments necessary. And you know what? All that was true. But what ended up happening that I didn't expect was that Hurts was just unbelievable throwing the ball. Not because I don't think he's good. I thought he was a good quarterback. But I just figured, he's got shoulder injury. Chiefs have a good secondary. I thought the Chiefs would shut that down. They didn't. I got to give them full credit. They really made that a lot harder than I thought it was going to be because Hurts was making throws all over the field. And Dallas Goedert last night played like one of the greatest tight ends I've ever seen. With about 3 different catches. I still don't know how he came down the ball.
You mentioned Andy Reid earlier, talking about how this changes his perception and maybe elevates him into the conversation, one of the all-time great, maybe a top 5 coach in NFL history. Where does he rank for you, and what do you think his perception is now? When he left Philadelphia, he was the coach that couldn't win the big one, couldn't manage the clock when it mattered. Now he's got 2 rings. What is now the defining line on line 1 of Andy Reid's Hall of Fame plaque? What does it say about him? What is now the defining the way that we define Andy Reid as an NFL coach?
Well, I think he defines one of the best offensive minds in NFL history. You put him right up there with Bill Walsh. I mean, he's that level of an offense. I mean, I will say that second half last night was one of the greatest offensively coached halves I've ever seen in my life. I mean, just took Philadelphia apart, limb for limb. Whether they ran the ball inside, they ran the ball outside, they threw the ball down the field, they threw quick. I mean, it was if they had played like that all game, they would have scored 60 points. Philadelphia just could do nothing against them defensively in that game. But I think with Andy, look, he's one of the great offensive minds of certainly this year and of ever, in my opinion. Is he a top 3 coach ever? No, because you have Belichick and Lombardi, and I don't think he's ever eclipsing those 2 guys, and I don't think he's he's going to eclipse Paul Brown. But after that, it's an interesting conversation. Like, look, I would still say Bill Walsh is ahead of him. He won 3 Super Bowls. You could argue Chuck Noll 4 Super Bowls. But like at this point, would I put him ahead of Don Shula? Yeah, I probably would. Would I put him ahead of Tom Landry? Probably would. I think you have that argument. George Halas, different era, obviously, very different era. But Andy's at least to the point now where you could argue he's a top 5 coach of all time.
Just a few more minutes with Matt Verderame, national NFL writer for Fansided.com. Go check out all of his work at Fansided, including the Stacking the Box column, Stacking the Box podcast, the Arrowhead Addict podcast as well. And make sure you go follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, last night we were doing a show on YouTube, instant reaction to the game, Dan, Jake LeBon, and myself. And I brought up that I think that Brett Veach deserves a lot of credit for how this roster has been constructed. And I know that every roster was built by a general manager at some point. So it's not, this is a wild thing. This GM built this roster. But, the last time the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, there were still a lot of pieces that were left over from the Dorsey era. And, I know Kelsey is still around from that long ago, and I know Mahomes was technically drafted by John Dorsey, but that was really a Veach and Reed move at the time. This entire roster now has Brett Veach's fingerprints all over it. What can you say about the job he did to not just build or re-sign this core, Chris Jones also a holdover, but to build and re-sign this core, to add to the draft a bunch of guys who made big impacts, but also adding guys like Kadarius Toney, mid-season acquisition, who ended up being one of the key players in the game. I mean, what is there to say about the way that Veach was able to assemble a championship roster like this?
There's a lot. There's a lot to say about it. I wrote in the preview of the week, I think I want to put it up on Wednesday or Thursday. Veach and Roseman, Howie Roseman, they have this long-standing relationship because they worked together for 9 years in Philadelphia. I think they're the 2 best GMs in football. And I would have said that at the beginning of the year. I certainly feel that now. What Veach has done with the Chiefs is phenomenal. And it's not just because, people look at Mahomes and go, oh, well, he was partially responsible for Mahomes. Sure. And he gets a ton of credit for that. But it's what he's done since Mahomes. Look, teams run into quarterbacks. I don't want to say all the time because that would be a gross overstatement. But teams run into quarterbacks. The Chargers ran to Justin Herbert. Okay. What have the Chargers done with Justin Herbert? It's not anything. They have the wrong coach, I think. They've had holes all across their roster. Now they're in a cap situation where they're probably going to cut Keenan Allen this offseason because they can't afford him. Like, what have they done? And this is where the genius of Veach comes in. Look at their drafts over the last 2 to 3 years. Look at all these guys that are young rookies, second-year guys who are getting paid by NFL standards, peanuts, and they just keep plugging them in, and they keep winning. And now you have all these guys on these young, cheap deals. And now the Chiefs, if they want to this offseason, can go out and they can go trade for DeAndre Hopkins. They could sign a Keenan Allen if he gets released. They could move up in the draft because they have a dozen picks. Like, this is why the Chiefs, along with the fact they have Mahomes and Andy Reid, are so great. And Veach is a huge, huge part of the brain trust there because they continue to stockpile these assets. And you can't do that unless you know when to move off of a player. And if you know how to utilize your draft picks to get the best players in there. And the Chiefs have done that from rounds 1 through 7.
Matt, how does Arizona, Glendale, Arizona specifically, stack up as a Super Bowl city?
It's great. It was great. This is my 5th time covering Super Bowl. Well, 4th game, fifth week. It's great. I mean, everything's right downtown. I'm sitting in my hotel right now. I can look across the street and I can see the convention center. So it was perfect. In and out, really easy. I would say the Phoenix is as good of a host city as I've ever been to.
All right, last thing I've got for you, Matt, then we'll let you go. I know you've got a lot of traveling and whatnot in your future, so we appreciate the time as always. What was the most underrated part of this game to you? What is maybe not being talked about enough? I know we asked what's the underrated storyline going into the game. Well, coming out of it, is there anything that sticks out that, hey, I think this made a big deal and we're not talking about it enough?
I think that the storylines are obvious. Mahomes' toughness and his ability to come back. Andy Reid, and those things have been played out, and rightfully so. They're the main headline. I would say this, and I mentioned it earlier. Nick Bolton last night was just unbelievable. Like, there's been some criticism of him at times this year in and around Kansas City about, he's got all these tackles, but he's not getting all blocks well enough. the Chiefs do not even approach winning the Super Bowl without Nick Bolton in that game. I mean, not even approach. He played every snap of that game, and he was brilliant. He was by a mile the best defensive player on either one of those teams. He had one touchdown. He could have had two. He was everywhere. And I think, we always talk about, Chris Jones and Kelsey and Mahomes. I think Nick Bolton's going to be the next guy that's going to be one of these guys perennially an all-pro, one of the best at this position. He was utterly brilliant when they needed him the most.
He was brilliant. The whole Super Bowl was brilliant. That's going to go down as one of the all-time greats. We appreciate the time to break it all down with Matt Verderame, national NFL writer over at fansided.com. Head to fansided.com. Check out all of Matt's great work covering the Super Bowl and the NFL as a whole. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at Matt Verderame as well. Matt, again, we appreciate you taking the time for us today. I know there's a lot of travel in your future getting back home, so safe travels. Thank you for the time, and we will talk to you next week as the celebration rolls on.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
That's Matt Verderame from fansided.com. Really do appreciate him stopping by with us. Nick Bolton was really good. I thought the linebackers in general were great. I thought Willie Gay flashed a couple of times. He had a quiet year, but, man, he had some big plays.
Willie Gay made some plays. Leo Chanel made some plays.
Yeah.
Leo Chanel getting downhill and helping out and run support. Like, I thought Leo Chanel played a good football game. She's in good hands with three promising young linebackers.
Hell, Leo Chanel's best play still ended up being a positive play for the Eagles. That Dallas Goedert catch, Chanel was all over, and that was just an incredible catch by Goddard. The linebackers were awesome. We've got more Super Bowl to talk about in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. 4 o'clock hour of this Victory Monday, Super Bowl Victory Monday on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you, celebrating and recapping the Kansas City Chiefs' third ever Super Bowl win. It's the second of the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era, and the second of the last 4 years in general. 38-35 over the Philadelphia Eagles. We're here with you until 6 o'clock recapping the game. By the way, just a programming note, coming up after the show today, we've got the 580 Preps High School Girls Basketball Coaches Club from 6 to 7 here on 580 WIBW. Don't forget that the coverage from the Sports on 580 crew does not end when our show ends today. Over on our website, 580WIBW.com, you can, right now, find a link to the show. You can go watch 580 Sports Talk on the YouTube feed right from our website, 580WIBW.com. You can also find links to our post-game recap, recapping everything that happened last night that led to the Chiefs' come-from-behind victory. And additionally, you can also find the link to the YouTube channel itself and our post-game recap show. Dan, myself, and Jake all went about half an hour last night chatting about the game, the big moments, the turning points, and all of that. It's at our website, 580WIBW.com, and on our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. We'd love for you to hop into the comment section on YouTube. Tell us your thoughts on last night's game, the big moments, the turning points, etc., etc. You can also hop in to the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Hit us up and let us know your thoughts on last night's big win for the Kansas City Chiefs. Later on this hour, we'll talk about some of the lesser discussed details of the Super Bowl, including how well the opponents played last night. We've got What Is Wrong With You today. We'll take a quick breather from all things Super Bowl to get to today's What Is Wrong With You. But then we've got to talk about Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, and he is now untouchable. We've used that word a lot. I've said, the Pantheon a lot, however you want to phrase it. There is no discounting this guy anymore. There really shouldn't have been before, but the football viewing public is so obsessed with the rings and how nothing really matters if you don't have at least one, and it might not even matter if you don't have multiple. Now there's none of that. There's no, he lost some pieces. No, their offense was better this year without Tyreek Hill. Yeah, they only got the one. No, they've got 2 rings now. So does the head coach, Andy Reid. He's untouchable too. There is no way to diminish what this team is and who this quarterback is at this point. And if you're a Chiefs fan, you already probably felt that way. But there is no denying this group, this core. This core, save for Tyreek Hill, has now been together for both Super Bowls. Look, if you want to say the offensive line, especially the interior is part of the core, okay, fine. But your best defensive player, Chris Jones, Frank Clark on the defensive line, because he's freaking Reggie White when it comes to the postseason, okay? That they've been here the whole time. Patrick Mahomes has been there. Travis Kelce, the best playmaker on the team, he's been there. Hell, Andrew Wiley's been there. Andy Reid, obviously. Brett Veach, obviously. This core group cannot be diminished at this point. And they can still go get more. You said it earlier. Patrick Mahomes may only be getting better. He's going to turn 28 next September 17th, I believe it is. I know that because he's just under a year younger than me, and he has all this, and I do not. Just true. But this is the beginning of, and I don't even want to say it's the beginning of greatness, because we saw greatness from his very first start, and really the first game of 2018 where we thought, oh my God, this is the guy, huh? And he had the 6-touchdown game against Pittsburgh and the shootout with the Rams. I mean, all these big games. But you brought it up last week that we were still kind of waiting for the overall game that was going to be the signature moment of his career. Because we've got the individual moments in games, plays, stretches, whatever. This, though, was the game that I think will always define what Patrick Mahomes is, has been, and can be. And there's no way to take that away from him now. He is the one. If anyone's going to get to the untouchable mark that is Tom Brady's status as the greatest of all time, whether you're arguing the greatest or the best or whatever, if there's anyone who can touch that, it is this guy who's the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs.
There are a lot of words I think that you can use to define Patrick Mahomes. I'm curious to know what your word is if you only got one to apply to the Chiefs. Now, two-time champion, two-time Super Bowl MVP winning, two-time league MVP winning quarterback. Hit us up with that one word on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, or in the YouTube comments. Already hearing from Vance saying, I think you can start to use the word GOAT, as in greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And he is now in that conversation, a part of that conversation, depending on how you feel about rings being the definition of greatness. You could fairly argue that he will surpass Tom Brady and Joe Montana with what he does in his career. It's going to be hard to win on that level. It was hard to win these two. You can't take for granted that he's going to get 4. You certainly can't take for granted he's going to equal Tom Brady. I don't think that's ever going to be equaled for any quarterback ever. But, in the NBA, Bill Russell's got all the rings, but we don't call him the GOAT just because he has the most rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how you feel about what needs to be accomplished in terms of rings, and you just take into account the individual honors, the team honors, and then the individual abilities, the things that Patrick Mahomes can do that nobody else does, the skills that he combines, the elusiveness, the big arm, the intelligence, the movement in the pocket, the sense of the moment, the record in big games, the comeback ability. It's the best of every other great quarterback you want to throw at me, all in one guy. Is what it feels like, an amalgamation of all the great quarterbacks you've ever seen. And I think we saw that on display last night with a whole lot against Mahomes. An ankle that's barking at him. He's down by 10 in the locker room, and he's barely gotten to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Chiefs had the ball for 8 minutes in the first half. He's a spectator for the better part of the first half. Other than the Jalen Hurts fumble, that half could not have gone better or more according to plan for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
They did exactly what they needed to do, dictated the terms of the football game, and relegated Patrick Mahomes essentially to a spectator.
And the thing that exemplifies that is after the fumble touchdown, the Eagles went right back down the field.
Yeah. That was the drive where Hurts had the 28-yard run, I think it was, on the 4th and 5.
Uh-huh.
And finished off that drive with a touchdown run. It was a remarkable response. It says a hell of a lot about Jalen Hurts,
right,
and who he is, kind of player, and the kind of, mind and mental toughness that he's got. But you've got Mahomes down 10, and you've got the number 1 pass defense in the league and a record-setting pass rush set to come down his throat in the second half, to absolutely come at him and to try and dictate the terms of the second half on defense. And Mahomes only touches the ball 4 times in the second half, and they score 24 points. And the only reason they don't score 28 points is because Jerick McKinnon selflessly goes down at the 1-yard line. They would have scored touchdowns on all 4 of their second half drive. And there wasn't a margin for error here because the Eagles were playing so well offensively. The Chiefs needed every last one of those points to make it happen. And they got it. And it happened not because Mahomes did spectacular, like he wasn't throwing 50-yard ropes down the field, or he wasn't like throwing with his left hand or doing all of those things that are like the wow, oh my God plays that we think about when we think about Patrick Mahomes. It was just surgical. It was, I am going to take precisely what the defense gives me. I know what I'm going to see.
Mm-hmm.
I know what we're going to make them do. And so I know who's going to be open, and I'm going to put it on him. He was 13 of 14 in the second half.
With a throwaway.
And yeah, the one was kind of the gimmicky play, and I'm wondering if maybe there was a miscommunication on, maybe Nick Allegretti was supposed to go out for a route on that because he lined up as a tight end. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but it was obviously a busted play, and he threw it out of the back in the end zone. The smart play. He just has learned so much from defeat. That's what's so impressive. One of the hundreds of things that's so impressive about Patrick Mahomes is he learned from that Super Bowl loss to the Buccaneers that, hey, maybe I am trying to do a little too much on my own. I'm bailing out of clean pockets a little too soon. I've got to be better moving within the pocket. And so he got better moving within the pocket. After last year's loss to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, the lesson in that game was I got to be more patient. I have to take what the defense gives me. I have to be content with taking a profit like we've talked about and making that 5-yard throw or getting the ball out quicker to the running back and being able to keep moving the ball down the field in that way. And while you're learning these lessons, the Chiefs traded your number 1 wide receiver, one of the most unique pass catching talents in the history of the game because of his speed and field stretching ability. And we're going to bring in all these new guys. Your receiving core this year is Travis Kelce and a bunch of new dudes that you've had as teammates for a year. Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Brand new to the team. Toney new to the team halfway through the year. And he just keeps getting better. And there's no reason to believe he's done getting better. This is the year that Patrick Mahomes had all the answers to the test. This is the year, if you want to play him too deep, he'll take what the defense gives you. You want to play him single high? Okay, I still got downfield weapons. I'm going to get the ball over the top. You want double team Travis Kelce? Yeah, good luck with that. He's going to get open anyway. You want to keep him in the pocket? Great. He moves better in the pocket than he ever has. There's just nothing he can't do. Literally nothing at this point. And the losses that the Chiefs suffered in the playoffs the last 2 years all informed Mahomes and kind of came full circle as we saw him evolve as a quarterback this year. And they're the reason why he won another MVP. He won another Super Bowl. He won another Super Bowl MVP. The numbers won't wow you. You might look back in 20 years and think, wow, he only threw for 180 yards. That's kind of, that wasn't huge. But he was 21 to 27. He was ruthlessly efficient and cut that defense to ribbons in the second half. He's the best there is. There's nothing else to say.
The thing that stands out to me from the post game is actually, and I know we're talking about Patrick Mahomes here, but it's something that Travis Kelce said about winning another Super Bowl. And he said that it felt like no game he had ever won ever before. And it was something that he wanted more than he had ever wanted before. And it was getting the second one. Because there is something different about winning number 2 and going from the chase to being the ones who are chased. And even though the Chiefs were not the defending champions this year, they were still, they're still the top dogs. Like, everybody who knows football knows that the Chiefs were still the top dogs in the, like, anyone who earnestly, honestly was picking the Chargers to win the division this year really doesn't know football. Like, if that's just, some nincompoop on TV saying, oh, Justin Herbert, LA is finally going to get a winner. Like, okay, whatever, fine. Their opinion doesn't matter anyway. They're just doing it because they're paid to do that. Anyone who earnestly picked that kind of thing is an idiot, because we knew this team was still the cream of the crop in the AFC West and in the entire AFC. So there's still an element of you're getting everybody's best shot every single game. You are the hunted. And look at the way the last 2 seasons have ended. Kelce and Jones brought this up. That, hey, the loss to the Buccaneers is never going to go away for the guys who played in that game. It is never going to. The defense wasn't good. The offense was terrible. It was a disaster of a game. Mahomes even brought that up. He said, look, I did not play well in these games. In the last 2 Super Bowls in general, I didn't play all that well. And really, he was right about that. Last year, the whole Bengals thing that started the feistiest rivalry in the NFL right now. Chris Jones is talking about Joe Burrow after the game.
Yeah.
Like, they are in their heads. But to come back from all of that and to still find a way down by 10 at halftime again, Mahomes did not play well in the second quarter. The few times he was out there, he started the game 4 of 4 for 66 yards. He went 4 of 9 for, I believe it was 23 yards over the next 9 passes going into halftime. Then he had obviously the perfect second half, or nearly perfect second half after that. But the wherewithal to learn all those things that you mentioned, to overcome all of those things that you mentioned, and then to still be able to dig deep enough and to have the drive to get it done, to have the football IQ to get it done. And it's not just Patrick Mahomes, too. It's the guys that I just mentioned. It's Travis Kelce, who had a big game, although mostly in the first half. Andy Reid, maybe called the best game of his life to win that Super Bowl. There is something different about the quest to get that second one when you are getting everybody's best chance the second time around, because everyone knows that you're the top dog at this point. There's something different about that. There's something special about that. And that's why this is the defining game. It isn't a fluke. You had another comeback. There's no, that doesn't happen very often. That's more the Eagles than no. This happens all the time for the Chiefs. 14 out of 24 times with Patrick Mahomes as their starter, in which they've gone down by 10 plus points. They have come back to win. That is not a bug. That is a feature of this team at this point.
What they do, and it's what they do in the playoffs. They behind 24-0 against Houston in the divisional round in 2019. What were they down to Tennessee? 17-7?
I believe so.
They were down 20-10 to the 49ers in the Super Bowl, same game or same year. Down 24-14 at halftime of this one. And it just never felt like they were out of it, because when you have Patrick Mahomes, you never are.
Do you know how many quarterbacks in NFL history have won the Super Bowl after being down 10 plus points?
It's Mahomes and Brady.
It is Mahomes and Brady. Do you know how many quarterbacks have done it multiple times?
It's Mahomes.
It is Patrick Mahomes. Now, he did have a point during his post-game press conference in which he said, next we'd kind of like to not get in those holes, which, fair enough. You don't want to be down 10 points or more. But at the same time, you're not out of the game. I mean, that's a handicap for everyone else. You're getting a 10-point handicap, especially, and sometimes you still aren't able to overcome that. Two other points just to break off things we've already mentioned here. Not necessarily Mahomes related, but some of them tangentially. One, you mentioned the selflessness of Jerick McKinnon going down at the 1. You could argue if you maybe had some interest in a Jerick McKinnon anytime touchdown, that was a selfish move, not selfless, but so be it. We'll talk more about that kind of stuff a little bit later on in the show. But the other thing, there's some irony in how that game ended, right? With the Andy Reid playing against the Eagles in the Super Bowl narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it to Matt Verderame. Andy Reid was known in Philly as the guy who was a great coach, great quarterbacks coach, great offensive mind.
Teams always won.
Except in the big one. They couldn't get to the Super Bowl. Then they finally did, and then they lost it. And they just never could win the big one. And what has been, over the entirety of Andy Reid's career, Chiefs tenure included, what has been the biggest knock on Andy Reid?
How he manages the clock. It goes back to that Super Bowl he went to in Philadelphia.
Yep.
That final drive where the Eagles put together a scoring drive, but milked the clock too much and never really gave themselves a chance to have the 2 scoring drives that they needed to actually win the game. That has followed Andy Reid. That has been a cloud over Andy Reid for his entire career.
And how did the Chiefs win Super Bowl 57? What was the final drive? It took, let me do the math here real quick, 5 minutes and 7 seconds off of the final 5:15 on the clock, burned it all the way down inside the 10-yard line to set up a game-winning field goal. How poetic is that? And it's why the two of them work so well together. And Mahomes has talked about how he knows that he is fortunate for the situation he landed in when he was drafted. Reid has heaped massive amounts of praise on his quarterback. He had the quote after the game, and I believe he said this to Tom Rinaldi of Fox, I believe. He said he's the MVP. What else do you need to say about it? He is the MVP. That's what he is. That's why we can win games like this. That's why we can come back in games like this. But they are the perfect connection. Andy Reid can come up with the craziest stuff in the world. And that's the other amazing thing about Mahomes. He can do all of them. He can make those throws. He can make the right decision on a trick play that goes awry. He can make the right decision when the Chiefs effectively run the same or a similar play out of the exact same concept, back-to-back snaps in the red zone, and it works for a touchdown. That's why they can run very similar things and open up these plays. The pass to Travis Kelce for the first touchdown. Greg Olsen, I thought, did a great job breaking that down on TV. He can make every single throw, every single one of them, and he doesn't get rattled by anything. It's remarkable to watch. He's got all the traits of all the all-time greats.
Yeah.
And even some of those all-time greats, the one, and I know this sounds like I have a bias in it, I think, because it's my favorite team that I talk about all the time. Coming out of the draft, Mahomes, he's like Brett Favre. He's going to be a gunslinger. He'll throw for a lot of yards and touchdowns, but a lot of picks. No, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, that's the parallel. They are really similar. And Aaron Rodgers had one of the greatest careers of any quarterback, any football player ever. 4 MVPs, the Super Bowl, going to be in the Hall of Fame, top 10 in every passing category. Mahomes has already won more.
Yeah.
In terms of team success in his career.
Mahomes is like, the thing about Brett Favre was that, the backyard football, he's just having fun out there. But Brett Favre, and this goes for off the field Brett Favre too, incidentally, Brett Favre never knew his limits or acted like he didn't have limits and tried to occasionally make plays that weren't there. That is why he has thrown the most interceptions of any quarterback in the history of the National Football League. Mahomes is like a version of Brett Favre who knows his limits and yet who finds ways to soar past those limits on a game in, game out basis, if that makes sense. Like he understands, and I think this is learned from him. I think this is something he's learned and is continuing to get better at, learning when a play isn't there. Learning when, I just got to shut this down and throw this away. I got to turf this. I got to get out of bounds. The play is not there to be made. But if I do a smart thing here, I'll have the time, I'll have the opportunity to make the play on the next snap. Like he has learned that, and he has only gotten better at that. I've got one more Patrick Mahomes stat for you.
Hit me with it.
And this is maybe as mind-blowing as it gets. So there's a metric that is used in football circles, expected points added. On a per-play basis, there is a number of points that is added or subtracted, as the case may be, given your performance on offense or your performance on defense on a given play. If you end the game as a offense with positive expected points added, you had a great day. If you end the day with positive points added on defense, you had an awesome day. If you end the game with a lot of negative points, expected points added on defense and on special teams, that's really hard for quarterbacks to overcome. Mahomes is one of 83 quarterbacks with at least 50 total starts since 2000. This is as far back as this data goes. Mike Sando had this stat today in The Athletic. 83 quarterbacks with at least 50 starts in the last 23 years. There are 3 quarterbacks who have a winning record when their teams finish games with negative expected points added on defense or on special teams. So when the other sides of the ball are really hurting your chance to win, Peyton Manning won 52% of those games. Tom Brady won 53% of those games. Patrick Mahomes has won 67% of those games. He's 39-19 when his teams finish with negative combined expected points added. Let's go to the extreme end. What if the combined expected points added was a touchdown worse than average on defense and special teams? Patrick Mahomes has won 59% of those games.
I mean, it's just stupid, man. There's no way these should be realistic.
Aaron Rodgers has won 35% of those games when his defense and special teams have let him down like that. Drew Brees only won 35% of those games. Eli Manning was 12-63 in those games in his career.
That's one of the best points in favor of his Hall of Fame candidacy.
Derek Carr is 6-45 in games where the expected points added by his defense and special teams are a touchdown or more below average. Patrick Mahomes is 23-16 in those games. By the way, minus 14 expected points added for the defense and special teams combined last night. And Patrick Mahomes is a Super Bowl champion again.
I'm surprised by those numbers for what it's worth.
The defense did give up 35 points.
That's true.
They scored a touchdown, but they also gave up 35 points, gave up a ton of third downs. I think that's probably the third down conversion percentage is what hurts the defensive performance metric.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We've got to take another time out here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got more Super Bowl coming up later on this hour, but first things first, we've got What Is Wrong With You coming up after this break here on 580 WIBW. Time to find our first weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. We got two new stories going head-to-head today. Dan, I'm going to go first. Your wife is an educator. She's a teacher.
Yes, she is.
If she wanted a day off from work, how would she go about doing that?
Well, she'd have to make sub plans first, which is a whole thing. And honestly is arduous enough that it makes a lot of teachers rethink taking a day off. You're like, I'd love a day off. I got to make sub plans. So that would be the first thing. She would have to make sub plans. And then, she would probably just call in and say, I'm not coming into work for whatever reason, though she kind of prides herself on her excellent attendance to work. I think a lot of teachers do. So, but yes, there have certainly been, nights we've gone to bed and she said, I wish it were a snow day. And then I say, babe, it's like April. And she says, I still wish it was a snow day.
We've had those before.
Yes.
Well, one way to avoid making sub plans if you aren't going to go to work is to make up a bomb threat and have the school get locked down.
Oh, Jesus.
Let's meet 40-year-old Paul Jacobs of Livonia, Michigan, who is facing charges after allegedly planting a bomb threat note in his own classroom to get a day off. The note was found back on February 2nd in the Hazel Park Junior High classroom of Mr. Jacobs. The note simply said that the school would be blown up the next day. Police initially thought Jacobs saw the note, but failed to report it. The building was searched by officers and K-9 units Thursday night that week, and no explosives were discovered. Now they believe that Jacobs himself placed the note with the intention of getting classes canceled. He is charged with making an intentional threat of an act of violence against a school, employees, or students, which is a 1-year misdemeanor. That is a lot of jail time. You're going to get a lot of days off, pal.
Yeah, you can have a lot of days off of work.
He is due back in court on the final day of the month.
He left that note on his desk, got to the crib, turned off his alarm, and that man was sleeping the sleep of kings on Friday morning, man. He thought that was foolproof. He said, there's no way. There's somebody going to find that on my desk on Friday morning, and they are going to sweep the place, and they're going to send everybody home, and I'm going to sleep in till maybe 10 o'clock in the morning.
This is the janitors and the superintendent's problem now, folks.
I might even go out for brunch.
I thought he was so smart. Thought he would never be caught.
Wow.
That's one way to avoid making sub plans.
Yes. That is one way to do it. Not recommended.
No, do not do this. Like with most What Is Wrong With You stories, do not, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, don't try this at home. For mine, we go to Paulding County, Georgia, where let's try that in English. A road rage incident in Paulding County ended with a motorist accidentally shooting himself. It happened shortly before 7:45 a.m.
Oh my God.
On Thursday.
Dog.
Hey, some people have bad mornings. According to investigators, the incident began when a truck delivering lumber caused a backup on the road. Two men wearing reflective vests were out on the road trying to direct traffic so that the truck could deliver its cargo. Officials say the suspect, who was clearly impatient and annoyed by the delay, got out of his vehicle and pointed a gun at the two men while threatening them.
What are they going to do? Like, what are these two guys going to do?
Yeah, like, you're going to tell the guy, hey, unload this lumber a little faster. Carl is really upset. He's waving the heater at us back there. Anyway, the guy felt like he had made his point, tried to reholster his gun, shot himself in the hand. According to witnesses, the man said he shot himself and asked someone to call 911. He was later found at a nearby fire station trying to get medical attention. At this time, detectives have not arrested the man, but they say that they will make the determination whether he will face charges after he is released from the hospital.
This dude's a nut. Well, guys, seriously, what are these public works people supposed to do? Why are you pointing a gun at them? They're not the ones who made this all happen. They're just trying to be helpful.
Just waving the gun at him. He's mad. He's been delayed because other people are doing their jobs. He gets out of the car and waves the gun around. Then he shoots himself in the hand. I can't imagine him showing up at the fire station.
What happened?
Here, I've been shot.
By who? Well, that part's a funny story.
Not important right now. You asking a lot of questions while my hand has a hole in it.
Oh my God, we got some idiots today.
Yeah,
Holy crap!
This is a great day, man. I hate having to pick a winner.
Oh my God. I am going to use, I've got a few different principles. The one that comes in when it comes to what is wrong with you, not in other areas, just kidding. But in what is wrong with you, the one that comes up the most is do not commit a crime while in the process of committing another crime. Another one, though, I usually lean with stories that have a bigger impact on a greater number of people. In the end, this guy shot himself in the hand.
Mm-hmm.
This other guy got the school, I would assume, shut down for all the other dozens of teachers and probably a couple hundred students just because he wanted a day off and didn't want to make a sub plan. He didn't want to pick, should they watch The Patriot or should they watch Braveheart this time when the sub is in?
Great joke. A great joke with the 316 on the Big O Tires text line. Clear the road or this guy gets it. This hand gets it.
The big hole in it.
It's just rolling up to the fire station. Asking the witnesses, hey, somebody call 911. They're all watching him wave a gun at these two innocent people like, I'm not feeling all that much charity in my heart for you right now.
Oh my God.
This seems like a you problem, pal.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see how this plays out.
Oh, both of these stories are so good.
What's your vote for today?
Man, as much guy shot himself in the hand. As much as I love that story, and as much as I have used the tie goes to trigger play tiebreaker many times in What Is Wrong With You history, the leaving a bomb threat so you can get a day off from your teaching job, it hits kind of close to home. Of all the things, just why don't you just lie and say you're sick, man? Just call into the hotline at whenever. I can't do it. Can't come in today. Got a little bug. I just can't do it. I gotta get a 3-day weekend.
I'm getting a backiotomy.
Yeah, I got a procedure scheduled. I'm seeing the doctor, and then enjoy your day. Enjoy your sleeping in. You
wouldn't be the first.
Casually leave a bomb threat on your desk. Like, hey,
oh man,
like
poor janitors, they got to deal with it.
There's so many layers to that plan. There's so much that had to go right for that to work. For one, it had to not be in his handwriting. Do we know if it was in his handwriting? That'd make it even better.
That really would make it better. Might have to look for more details of this, but I'm with you. I think this guy wins. You ruined everyone's day. Just lie.
Oh gosh. Well, I hate so much that this is a Monday matchup, and both of those are good enough to win a month.
They really are. Man, what a battle. That is tremendous. That is going to be the fake bomb threat is our winner. You're going to need a minute, need an extra long break to get a breath here. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, we've got more Super Bowl 57 reaction coming your way on 580 Sports Talk. Why wouldn't you just call in sick? I just can't get over it,
A guy that committed to not working probably already blew through his sick days.
All right, that's a fair point. That is absolutely a fair point. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you, 446 on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday, the day after the Super Bowl, the third ever Super Bowl championship for the Kansas City Chiefs, who now, if I'm not mistaken, are 3-2 in 5 all-time appearances.
3-2 in all-time appearances, now have as many Super Bowl championships as the Oakland / Los Angeles / Oakland / Las Vegas Raiders, and as many Super Bowl championships as the Denver Broncos. And trust me when I tell you, good folks of the greater Topeka area and Northeast Kansas and the world, that makes Broncos fans really annoyed, because that was like the thing that they had over the Chiefs, and now they don't have that anymore.
No, they do not. Yeah, Broncos, Raiders, the Commanders also have that.
Yes, the Washington football concern also has 3 Super Bowl championships.
So who's next? If the Chiefs win another one, they would join.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Dallas. No, Dallas has 5. So 4. The Giants have 4.
Giants do have 4.
The Packers have 4.
The Packers do have 4. Those are the only 2 with exactly 4.
And then you have then you have the Dallas got 5. Patriots have 6. Steelers have 6. Niners have 5.
Yep, there you go. Those are the only ones higher.
Yeah, that's who's next for the Chiefs. That's where they are historically now.
Yeah.
You know, that's as a franchise, that's the company they get to keep.
There's a few things from this game that we haven't talked a ton about, but that do stand out. And, you know, we talked a lot about some of the storylines, the Reed versus Philly thing, and, you know, the Kelsey Bowl, and both Kelseys played pretty well in the game.
Yeah.
I just cannot get over how good Jalen Hurts looked. He threw the ball really well. His arm looked fine. The only throw his arm really didn't look okay the entire game was you can't even call it a Hail Mary. I don't even know what that last throw was, but he might have slipped.
Yeah.
That was a major storyline in the game.
Oh, my hell. That was a disgrace. They can't have another Super Bowl at that stadium again. And I'm already biased towards that stadium. But look, man, that turf was so bad in week 1 that it injured 2 Chiefs. Harrison Butker was not the same kicker this year for the Chiefs because he got hurt on that field in week 1. Trent McDuffie got hurt as a result of slipping on that field in week 1. And they talked all week about how, hey, we got the sod father down, and this is a field we've been growing for 2 years, and it's PGA Tour certified, and we've been rolling it out every day to get plenty of sun and rolling it back into the stadium to keep it cool. And he had players on both teams talking about how it was playing like on a water park, was, I think, what Jordan Mailata of the Eagles said after the game.
That's the thing that is amazing to me, is that you had the problems just a month ago, just over a month ago, a month and a half, fine, that the college football playoff, where Michigan players and TCU players were skidding and sliding all over the place. They have an entirely new field, and the exact same problem comes up. At some point, it's not the field, although I got to be completely honest with you, maybe this is the right time for George Toma to retire, because that field was not all that special. Oklahoma State bragging about it also ended up being very funny.
Yeah, it did.
Since they developed the blend or whatever. But you can't have a Super Bowl at that stadium again. You just can't. Not if you know there's a risk of the field being like that. That was a disaster.
Yeah, it was a real shame. And I think, you know, when we talk about the pass rush, we talk about how the Eagles did not have a sack. And we talk about, you know, the Chiefs, they got 2 sacks, but those were both on Hurts stepping out of bounds, like half a yard behind the line of scrimmage on scrambles that the Chiefs happened to cover really well. So, yeah, interior pass rush, edge pass rush, not super impactful in this game. You have to wonder if the field conditions were maybe contributed to that.
Now, to counter that, I think in general that's true. You know, he actually played pretty well. His name didn't get called a ton because he didn't get any sacks. Hassan Reddick had 7 pressures in the game. They were able to generate something, the Eagles were.
Their pressure rate was actually above average.
Yeah.
But what is one thing that people like to say about the sack? It's the quarterback stat.
Uh-huh.
And the Eagles played a lot of bummy quarterbacks this year. They didn't play Patrick Mahomes. And who's really good at not getting sacked? Patrick Mahomes. And that's not, I don't want to be unfair to the Chiefs offensive line. They deserve their roses. They deserve a lot of credit. But Patrick Mahomes being really good at not getting sacked turned out to be a little more important than that big sack, that gaudy sack number that the Eagles had coming in.
I don't know I don't know. The big thing we heard all week was this game is going to be decided in the trenches. Matt Verderame told that to us. I heard Louis Riddick say it on ESPN the day before the game. I mean, that take was everywhere, and I think it was a very fair take. I think the truth is it was somewhere between that opinion and the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, and that's the deciding factor of the game. I think the truth, the actuality is somewhere in the middle there.
Because all the Chiefs needed to do was play it to a stalemate in the trenches, right? Yeah. And that's what they did. Like their offensive line held the Eagles to a draw at best and kept the sack number to a 0, which is incredible against a team that had 78 sacks in 19 games, 8 sacks in 2 playoff games. Like that's remarkable work, and it's going to get Andrew Wiley and Orlando Brown paid.
Yeah, I wonder by who. And I know that's not at the forefront of our minds right now because this is the wake of the Super Bowl and the championship and all that. But that's the interesting part is in the era of free agency, it's hard to keep everyone together. It is harder now to win multiple Super Bowls or win Super Bowls, period, because guys leave. It is hard to keep everyone around. That's what makes it so amazing for the Chiefs. They've got a bunch of picks. They can keep Orlando Brown if they want. They can go to the bank of Mahomes at some point, get that auto restructure kicked in, and be able to keep a bunch of these guys. But it was the sort of the unsung heroes game. Like Orlando Brown was not great for a lot of this season, but he was truly great on the biggest stage. Kadarius Toney was a midseason acquisition who, you said this last night on our post-game wrap-up on YouTube, and I think a lot of people felt this way, at least based on what I saw on Twitter. People thought he was hurt. He played, 1 or 2 snaps in the first half total?
Yeah.
People thought he was not actually good enough to go in this game. Sky Moore didn't do anything except 1 4-yard fly sweep in the third quarter. He comes up with one of the biggest catches of the game. Yeah, he fell down with a god-awful turf. He comes up with a touchdown catch in the fourth quarter as part of the comeback.
His first touchdown of the entire season. He did not have one in the regular season. And that was his first career NFL touchdown. Comes in the Super Bowl. Pretty cool moment for Sky Moore. But I want to double back to the first thing you said about Jalen Hurts real quick here, because I know we're going to get to the top of the hour here very shortly. But Jalen Hurts is 24 years old. And if you look at the entire scale of his career to date, is a point I kept making last week. He has gotten better and better and better at every stop. He got better every year at Alabama. He shrugged off the, frankly, humiliation of being benched in the championship game and then benched for all the next year behind Tua Tagovailoa. He goes to Oklahoma. He gets better. He gets drafted into the league. He gets better when they install him as the starter. He got better last year. He got better this year. Played like an MVP for the first 15 weeks of this season. As long as Jalen Hurts is their quarterback, they're going to have a chance. We have talked historically, it is so hard to get back to a Super Bowl after you lose. Like, you look at the historical record of teams that have lost the Super Bowl and how hard it is to get back, and how hard it is in the salary cap era to get back after you've paid the quarterback the big bucks. But the last 2 Super Bowl losers came within a field goal of getting back. It was Kansas City last year. It was Cincinnati this year. And given the state of the NFC, why shouldn't the Eagles be overwhelming favorites in the NFC going into next year?
Oh, they absolutely should.
The building blocks are going to be back, and I would not bet on against continued improvement for Jalen Hurts. Give that man his roses. He's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He proved a lot of doubters wrong. Mahomes said this too. He said, look, if there's any doubters left, there shouldn't be at this point. I mean, he played well, and he even said, I don't want his great performance to get lost in the loss they had. And that's true. He was awesome. He's everything you could have possibly hoped for in that game, and the Eagles just didn't quite have enough, but they're going to be fine. Long term, I know this is easy to say, but I think they are going to end up being just fine. They've got Brown and Devontae Smith for a while. Devontae Smith, by the way, he is a star in the making. Someday, some team is going to give him so much money, and everyone who thought, well, he can't be an NFL player, look, he's skinny, is an idiot. A true, bona fide idiot. He is a star. Just didn't have quite enough star power, though, because the ultimate star plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. One more hour to go on 580 Sports Talk. Headlines, Super Bowl, and so much more coming up here on 580 WIBW. to go on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dorzinski and Dan Lucero with you on this Victory Monday post Super Bowl 57. The Kansas City Chiefs are world champions, and we want to hear all of your thoughts about that championship. Hit us up on the Big O Tires text line. The number is 785-272-9429. You can also jump into the comment section on YouTube. Our channel is known as Sports on 580 WIBW. Great time to go subscribe to it. We're still trying to grow the channel. We've got plenty of great stuff up there right now, including our Chiefs post-game instant reaction show from last night. Dan, Jake, and I putting it all together. A lot of fun to talk about the game, get our instant thoughts from immediately after the Super Bowl ended. We've got so much more up there as well. So head on over to the website to our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Hit subscribe, doesn't cost you anything. And then all of our videos will pop up right there on your YouTube homepage. And go check out our website as well, 580WIBW.com. We are live streaming the show on the homepage right now. Plenty of other great stuff up there as well. That will include at 7 o'clock tonight, the recorded version of the 580 Preps High School Girls Basketball Coaches Club, which will be live tonight starting at 6 o'clock right here on 580 WIBW. 7 city coaches joining me to talk all things girls high school hoops coming up later on this evening at the top of the 6 o'clock hour. Here in this hour, the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, a lot to get to headlines-wise, Super Bowl and otherwise. We'll get to that here in just a moment. We'll also get to the other fun stuff from around the Super Bowl yesterday. How about some commercials? How about Rihanna? How about anything else that happened during Super Bowl Sunday? We'll get to all that coming up here in just a little bit. And again, your comments on YouTube, your texts as well, welcome throughout this final hour of the show. Let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. You can go visit them online at blue.kansas.com. Headline number one, Dan, I feel like we should just kind of empty the notebook here on Super Bowl 57. Just sort of anything out there we haven't really gotten to as of yet.
Yeah.
Not a ton of news coming out from the game. There has been a lot of outcry about what we talked about last hour and the field conditions. Just earlier this afternoon, or just afternoon, in fact, Marshall Newhouse, who was a longtime NFL player, not an especially good one, but a longtime NFL player, played for the Packers, I'm not sure who else he played for. I think the Commanders at some point, maybe the Colts as well. He tweeted out, as clips of last night's game are poured over and broken down, the condition of the field will become even more glaring. I hope, all caps, no one shuts up about it. Everyone is held to such a high standard in the league, and the field being so poor on the biggest day for the NFL is unreal. That is absolutely true. Brandon Thorne, who is probably the best independent offensive lineman writer, or just writer about offensive line play in the NFL, he has also criticized it, and a bunch of guys have come out and said, look, that was a major reason why the game unfolded the way it did. Not saying that's why the Chiefs won by any means, but the Eagles' complaints after the game about the slippage was 100% reasonable. And had the Chiefs lost, there probably would have been some comments there about the slippage as well. You mentioned Sky Moore. The one play he had before the touchdown, he fell down. Dude's offense, defense sliding all over the place. I mean, that was inexcusable for the NFL. You cannot have that in the biggest game of the year. The biggest single sporting event in the world next to the World Cup final. You can't have it.
No, it was disgraceful. It was evident that both teams were having problems with it, and there's only but so much. I mean, I know some players, they caught it right away with Jalen Hurts, that he had skipped, changed shoes, changed spikes.
He went from Jordan 11s to Jordan 1s.
See, you're a sneakerhead. You'd notice that. I just like, his shoes are a different color. That's all I got for you.
All right, fair enough.
But
yeah, you're right. They pointed it out on TV.
Yeah, so change shoes, get a different length of spike, or just something that you're a little bit more comfortable with. And there's but so much you can do if you just can't get traction. And it's really unfortunate that was part of last night's game in any way, that you had players sliding all over the place. Fortunate that there was no significant injury. Jake Elliott rolled his ankle on a kickoff.
Just like Harrison Butker in week 1.
Yes. And Butker, again, he never quite recovered from that rolled ankle. He was never quite the same reliable kicker for the Chiefs throughout the season as he has been in seasons past. And it stems from an ankle sprain he suffered in that same stadium in week 1. Imagine if Jake Elliott had been hurt and the Eagles had had a chance at the end to try and tie the game, but they got no field goal kicker. Like, there could have been a major impact in the game with regards to injuries, and the league is fortunate that they got through last night's game with none of that. But there was enough slipping and sliding. It was definitely a talking point, and it should be. That can't happen again for a championship game. It cannot. And if Arizona can't get their field surface right, they don't get to host another one of these. I know Matt Verderame raved about it as a host city. They've hosted 4 Super Bowls now historically. All of them have gone off without a hitch. In fact, they've hosted 3 classics at State Farm Stadium there in Arizona. But if you can't get the field conditions right, you don't get to host a championship game. That has to be like, they have to prove down there at State Farm Stadium that they can get the surface correct. And if they can't, then they don't get to do this.
Agreed. 100% agree with you. Some notes on the Eagles real quick. They are now the first U.S. city, Philadelphia is, to lose 3 major sports championships in 3 months. The Philadelphia Phillies, they lost in the World Series.
Yes.
Duh, obviously. The Eagles now have lost the Super Bowl. They are, I think, 1-3 all time now, or 1-3.
1-3. Yes.
Yeah. And their MLS team also lost in their championship.
Philadelphia Union lost in the MLS Cup, I think on the same day, or that the Phillies lost.
Same weekend, I think.
Yeah, same weekend, Phillies lost the World Series. I can't wait until the 76ers lose the NBA Finals to the Denver Nuggets. I can't wait until that happens.
Okay, I mean, aside from the Nuggets part of it, I would love to see the Sixers win a title, because I would love to see it for Joel Embiid, because I love Joel Embiid. Every KU fan does. It would be very funny if they lost in the finals, though. I got to be honest with you. That would be very funny.
Yes.
Also, one final note, shout out to my guy, Jake Elliott, fellow member of the Lyons Township High School class of 2013. He is now tied in 13th place all time in points scored in Super Bowls, which obviously doesn't count for quarterbacks because you don't get points scored for throwing a touchdown pass.
Mm-hmm.
You know who he's tied with in 13th all time with 20 points scored in Super Bowls?
Jan Stenerud.
No. Don Chandler. You know anything about Don Chandler?
Packers kicker, I believe.
Yeah. Way back in the day. As well as Jalen Hurts, who scored 20 points yesterday. 3 rushing touchdowns and a 2-point conversion on the ground.
He did. He got the octopus.
He did get that one. Someone a lot. I think that was plus 1,400.
1,800. I saw it some places.
Hello.
Yeah, that won somebody some serious money if you bet on the octopus.
Do you know who has the most points scored in Super Bowl history?
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice. It is outrageous. Number 2 is Adam Vinatieri. Number 3 is Steven Gostkowski. That makes sense. Those dudes played in tons of Super Bowls. Jerry Rice has 14 more points scored than Adam Vinatieri in Super Bowls. A non-kicker scored 48 points in 4 Super Bowls. That's absurd.
Yeah, it is.
That is truly ridiculous. So just some final notes from Super Bowl 57.
Hey, a great note here from one of our texters here on the Big O Tires text line with a note on the grass.
Oh,
I know something about turf grass. That turf either never rooted down properly or has too much sand in the substrate, and it's in a controlled climate.
Hell yeah. Look at that. You're not getting that on ESPN today.
No, you're not.
You're not getting that on FS1. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Clearly something was wrong.
No doubt.
Absolutely bizarre. One other bit of news emerging from the Super Bowl last night.
Mm-hmm.
Chad Henne retired.
Yes, good, great. Thank you for bringing that up. That is a big deal.
Chad Henne, the Chiefs' backup quarterback, announcing on his Instagram page mere minutes after the conclusion of Super Bowl 57 that he's calling it a career, taking a picture of himself holding a Bud Light on the field, and announcing that his NFL career is over. He goes out a 2-time Super Bowl champion and a contributor in a big way to this year's Super Bowl run, leading that 98-yard touchdown drive against the Jaguars. Salute to Chad Henne. when I told my wife that I said, "Oh, Chad Henne retired," and she was distressed. Like, who's going to be our backup next year? Like, it was nice having Chad Henne back
really
there
was.
because he didn't take a lot of snaps for the Chiefs, but he won them 2 playoff games in the last 3 years.
Yeah. The first ring, he didn't get to be a part of at all because he got hurt. So it was Matt Moore.
Yeah, it was Matt Moore. Yeah.
And Henne obviously gets a ring for being around. But the Henne thing is possible game a couple years ago. And this year, I mean, I don't know if they beat the Jaguars if he doesn't get that touchdown drive.
Yeah.
There's no way to know. So, no, that's very cool for him. 15 years, I believe it was, in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the I'm pulling up the story exactly correct. 37 years. Broke into the league in 2008. So,
yeah, on that 07 Michigan team.
Yeah, 15 years. Yeah, that's how long he's been playing. He was on the team that lost Appalachian State.
That's wild.
Like, that's how long ago Chad Henne was playing college football. 78 career games, 54 starts, 60 career touchdowns, 13,290 career yards, 2 Super Bowl rings, and 2 drives that will live long in the memory for Chiefs fans.
Yeah, he'll always be fondly remembered in Kansas City. That's a pretty good football life. Get to start a lot, still get to have a job for a long time after that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good football life for Chad Henne.
Made himself a pretty good chunk of change.
Yeah,
and gets to
40 mil.
Yeah, and gets to leave on his own, on his own 2 feet.
Yeah,
on his own merits. Yeah, salute to Chad Henne.
Drinking beer, going off the field for the final time. How cool is that?
Hell yeah, man! I look forward to giving him kudos on his LinkedIn page when he announces his career change.
I would imagine the Chiefs knew this was coming, and I imagine that is why they kept Shane Buechele in training camp.
Yeah, kept him throughout the year
because that is your backup. That's Shane Buechele.
Yeah, they obviously really like him.
Yeah,
and have wanted to groom him to be the successor. At the same time, I think the Chad Henne experience has proven perhaps to the Chiefs the value of having an experienced veteran backup.
That's true.
And perhaps down the road there might be a player who accepts their lot in life as a career backup who might be okay wearing the ball cap and holding the clipboard behind number 15 if it's a way to get a Super Bowl ring or 2.
Did you just call Baker Mayfield to the Chiefs?
Maybe not Baker Mayfield. Teddy Bridgewater?
That one would make sense. That one would make sense. Teddy Bridgewater's like the most well-liked guy in the entire NFL.
Yeah, everybody loves Teddy.
He can only throw the ball about 15 yards. It's just kind of limited in that regard.
Yeah.
Any other headlines to get to today?
Well, we can get to some headlines from outside of the National Football League.
Let's do it.
Couple of Major League Baseball rule notes.
Oh, good. I'm going to put my fist through the camera.
Yeah, if you don't do it, if you don't do it first, I'm going to. Major League Baseball is making it permanent in all regular season extra inning games. A runner will be placed on second base to begin the 10th inning and in every subsequent extra inning after that until a winner is determined. They instituted that rule in 2020, and we all said, oh, okay, I understand it's the COVID season, weird stuff. And then they kept it in place for 2021. They're like, well, okay, I guess this is a weird season impacted by the COVID. And then they kept it in place for last year, and we said, well, it's a weird year because of the lockout. And now it's forever. Now it's forever. Now it's a rule that after 9 innings of baseball, real baseball, we're playing now U7 softball rules. Put a kid on second base, the California tiebreaker. It's a damn disgrace is what it is. And what it says, what this rule change says, is that Major League Baseball, the owners and the players, do not value the regular season. Do not see regular season games as worthy of playing out to a fair conclusion. And so if the 162-game regular season is such an inconvenience for the players and for the owners, why should the fans care about the bulk of the 162 games? If you're going to say, we only really want to work 10 innings, and I don't get paid overtime. I don't want to be out there for 12 innings. That's too long. Our pitchers are only conditioned to throw 20 pitches and then they can't pitch anymore. We can't have too long of games. We have to play this U8 travel ball rule. We have to put this in like in leagues where pitchers can't throw strikes. It's pathetic. It's gross.
The point I have brought up so many times about where Major League Baseball is something you just brought up. And if you've listened to this show over the last 3-ish years, you have heard me many times say, if they don't want me to care, I am not going to care. And that has come down to the Cubs specifically, but although they've actually kind of spent this offseason. But to Major League Baseball as a whole, if you're telling me your product doesn't matter, then I'm not going to fight you on it. Like, you're the stewards of the game. I mean, you can look at how many different examples. Go to the infamous piece of metal quote from Rob Manfred about the Commissioner's Trophy. Man, if you're not even going to act like winning the championship matters, then why should I care? Like, why am I supposed to think that it matters? If you're going to act like regular season games don't mean anything, then why should I? I mean, that's a very NBA way to view it, right? Because that has been the knock, or one of the knocks, on the National Basketball Association for many years, that, well, you only need to watch the last 2 minutes, or, oh, you only need to watch in the playoffs. And the league has kind of steered into that.
Yeah. Load management becoming a thing in the NBA, where you have, big regular season matchups that have no juice because, the Sixers are playing the Bucks, but the Sixers played a overtime game last night, so Joel Embiid's not going to play against Giannis. Like,
that's bad for the game, and similarly, that's bad for baseball.
Yeah, it is. It's bad for baseball that you're telling your fan base that these regular season games are an inconvenience to us. That's what you're saying. You're saying that this is an inconvenience. We're just trying to speed to the end. So we're putting these fake runners on base that aren't real, and we're playing it's a completely different game at that point. Might as well just end it in a home run derby or end it in a tie. If it's too much to ask for those guys to play more than 9 innings, just go ahead and have ties. I could live with
agree.
that. I'd rather watch 9 innings and then nobody wins and it's tense and it's taut and it's real baseball, and then nobody wins. We say, all right, it's a tie. Okay. The team has 5 ties at the end of the year. All right, we'll figure it out when we get to the playoffs. I'd rather have that than this disgraceful rule. I hate it so much, and now it's forever. And Rob Manfred's legacy, when he is done with the game of baseball, will be that there was less baseball than there was before.
I mean, I think it started as a joke, but it's pretty obvious that he does not like the game, right? And it's not just him, but it's his cronies too. It's the people who are part of
It's the owners.
Yeah.
It's the owners. The owners see the game as an investment vehicle, something in their portfolio. They don't believe themselves to be stewards of the sport, stewards of the game of baseball. They're just in it like they look at it like it's another real estate investment. Like, this is just a tenant for my real estate investment. John Sherman, Dick Monfort, the guys who own the Braves.
Yeah.
Like, no, they're just a tenant. That's what this thing is to me. It's not a baseball team. It's not a community priority. It's not something where we're trying to win. This is just something where I'm trying to make some money. This is an investment opportunity. This is no different than owning an apartment building. You're just trying to get all the lots filled. It sucks. It sucks so bad.
Does.
And it makes me care. And I love baseball more than any sport we talk about on this program.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I love them all. I do. I love them all for different reasons. They've all got a spot in my heart. Like, I'm truly passionate about all these sports we talk about, but none more so than baseball.
Right.
And the way the game has been managed the last half decade has turned me off in a way I didn't think was possible, to be honest.
You want to get really into like KU and K-State baseball this year? I'll go down to Hoagland Ballpark for a few games.
Hell yeah, man.
I get really like, and I'm not trying to do the whole, and this happens with the college basketball and the NBA discourse a lot. It becomes, well, college basketball is real basketball, which I think there's a lot that is tied in with that we don't really need to get into. And I'm somewhat joking, although I'd love to go to a game. Never been to a K-State game, baseball game.
I haven't been to a K-State game. I have been to a couple KU games at Hoagland Ballpark, though.
Nice intimate park. There's like 1,500 seats.
Yeah,
very
I like
intimate.
it. I like it a lot.
But again, like, why? If I asked Rob Manfred, why should I care about the product of Major League Baseball right now? What would his answer be? And I'm seriously, honestly, earnestly curious about that. What is the selling point of what baseball is? Because they don't talk about it publicly. The owners don't seem to really care whether you think it's worth it or not.
Yeah, like, what is it worth caring about in your sport? And I don't know that Rob Manfred have a real good answer to that. Love this from the 316 on the Big O Tires text line. What about ghost runners? Then nobody has the stress running the bases. That might be next.
I will follow up. When people call this, the automatic second base runner, when they call it a ghost runner rule, peeves me. That is not a ghost runner. Have you ever played a 5-on-5 baseball game in the park before? A ghost runner is just a pretend runner who runs your speed.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
It's a real runner. It's just a rule that you put in place to end a game quickly because Cheyenne and her U8 softball team have to play another game in 15 minutes. So you have to enforce the 2-hour time limit. Mm-hmm. And why don't you just do that? Why don't we go there next? 3-hour time limits on all Major League Baseball games.
I mean, you might as well
put a clock on it. So we got a 3-hour time limit. Then whatever the score is at the end of 3 hours, we just finish the inning and then we can go home.
I do know that the slippery slope argument is what you like to call a logical fallacy, but there is an element of wonder when it comes to that with Major League Baseball because it keeps happening. Well, let's just institute these rules. The 7-inning double headers, I think that was even more egregious. That's not even baseball. That's arcade baseball. That's you put a quarter in the machine and it only lasts for 7 innings because that's as long as they programmed it for. Like, that's nonsense baseball. But they tried it. They liked doing it. They did it for a while. Now this rule, which is also just complete nonsense, they're keeping it around. The players and owners like it for what I don't understand why the players like it, but so be it. What's next? If you're going to keep taking away baseball, what is it going to be? Are they going to shorten the schedule?
No,
because they don't
give up home dates for your real estate investment.
Right.
No way.
So if they're going to keep going down this path, then what's next? No. Nothing good.
No, nothing good.
One other headline I want to get to real quick. It is the AP Top 25 poll in college basketball this week.
Yes.
Your top 5. Alabama, now number 1, because Purdue got upset by Northwestern at Welsh Ryan Arena. No one goes to Welsh Ryan Arena and leaves unscathed.
Yeah, Northwestern lost their best player, maybe their 2 best players to the transfer portal this year, and they're still legitimately good.
They're better than they were last year.
Word to Boo Booey.
Yeah, is Pete Nance bad? Is he a curse? Because he left Northwestern as their best player. Now he might be the best player at UNC or one of their best, and they stink. Houston's number 2. Purdue fell to number 3, dropping 2 spots. UCLA is up to number 4, and coming in at number 5, 4 spots up, the Kansas Jayhawks. They are back in the top 5 this week after back-to-back wins. Texas is down 1 spot after losing to KU and beating West Virginia by $1 billion. They're number 6. Rounding out the top 10, Virginia, Arizona, Baylor is up to 9. I'm telling you, man, that is a scary, scary team.
Yeah, they're getting better.
Yeah, they really are. And Tennessee, after losing on another buzzer beater, they are down to 10th. K-State remains in 12th. This is the interesting thing about the poll, is K-State is only in 12th still because of the poll inertia, so to speak. They had 65 less votes or voting points this week, but because so many teams moved up and so many fell down because of upsets, they stayed in the same spot.
And I mean, they smoked the top 20 team at home, and then they lost to the worst team in the conference on the road, but only lost by a handful of points, and it's a road loss in the best conference in America. So, I didn't think they were going to get dinged too harshly. I am surprised they stayed at 12, but I didn't think they should have fallen out of the top 15.
I would agree with that. Iowa State is out of the top 15. They cratered. They fell 8 spots after another couple losses.
Not far enough.
Yeah, they're doomed. They're toast. TCU also fell 5 spots after back-to-back losses. I mean, you can't even judge TCU at this point without Miles.
No.
It's 2 completely different teams. Also, Oklahoma State receiving votes this week.
I would put them in the top 25.
I agree. I think
they're 7-1 in the league when Musa Cisse plays.
There is an argument that the first 4 of the first 5 teams, or 5 of the first 6 teams receiving votes not in the poll this week, all have an argument to be ranked. Oklahoma State, Pittsburgh, Illinois, Northwestern, and Missouri. You can make an easy argument for all of those teams. Get Providence out of my face. Big East teams. I watched a lot of Big East and ACC basketball last week. Mid-major leagues, all of them. There's 2 high major leagues. It's the Big 12 and it's the SEC. Everyone else is mid-major.
Yeah.
Everyone else. Any other headlines for you?
With the emphasis on mid.
No kidding.
No, that'll do it for my headlines.
And that'll do it for mine as well. Shout out to our good friends at Blue Dot for sponsoring our 580 Sports Talk headlines. You can go check them out online at bluedotkansas.com. Let's take a break. The other fun stuff at the Super Bowl this weekend, not just the game, that was plenty fun, but the other fun stuff. We'll recap all that coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. Some Super Bowl news and notes for you here on 580 Sports Talk, 5:33 on this Super Bowl Championship Monday. Brendan and Dan here with you. The ratings are in for the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 57 is the third most watched TV show ever, behind two other Super Bowls.
Yeah.
An average audience over the duration of the game of 113 million viewers. It is the most watched Super Bowl in 6 years and the third most watched of all time. Superstar quarterbacks bring in eyeballs.
Yes, they do. Most watched Super Bowl of all time, for anyone wondering, is still Super Bowl 49, Patriots-Seahawks.
Interesting. I think I did know that. That would make sense. Russell Wilson had ascended to being a great, at least at the time.
You had Tom Brady on one side, and then people felt feelings about those Seahawks teams.
Yes,
they may not have all been positive, but people felt things about that Seahawks team.
That is absolutely true. 100% true. So that is certainly interesting. Broadcast note, what'd you think of Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen doing their first Super Bowl?
I thought they were terrific. I thought it was a really good call. They've been excellent all year. Greg Olsen has gotten better game by game. I think it's going to be a real shame when Tom Brady forces him out of the broadcast booth, even though I'm on record as saying I don't think Brady ever gets there, that maybe he does studio stuff instead or just decides he doesn't really want to do it all that badly.
Yeah.
But Greg Olsen's really good at this, like really, really good at this. And I think he could do it for a long time.
The drive in which I think it was the Sky Moore touchdown where they tried the trick play first with the eligible offensive lineman. That's why Andrew Wiley had to go off the field, and Lucas Niang actually came in the game and played it down in the Super Bowl right before the play gets snapped. And Burkhardt's doing all the setup, and Olsen just very quickly, very deftly says, yeah, there's a rule where you can't be an eligible receiver and then an ineligible player on back-to-back plays. So that's why Wiley had to come out and Niang is in there. Boom, snap, touchdown, one play later.
And that was something like most viewers probably didn't know.
No, there were two things I learned in the game from the broadcast that I did not know before. One was that one, and I thought, he's so good at making it make sense. He's just incredible at it. The other one, and this is like real nerd stuff, but on the Goddard catch, when it was, or catch or no catch on the sideline, they got reviewed, and then they tried to run a play, but they threw a flag and said the officials hadn't given the Chiefs time to substitute. I did not know that plays that ended out of bounds counted as an offensive substitution. I didn't know that. Mike Pereira explained that. That's why they stopped the play, and it gave the Chiefs then an extra chance to challenge it, because originally they didn't, because the Eagles went so quickly. I did not know that. That was new to me. I thought they did a great job on Fox of explaining those things. Yeah. By the way, to the Olsen point, the New York Post, or Andrew Marchand, of the New York Post wrote about this today, that Greg Olsen's pay as the number one color commentator is $10 million a year. That's a lot. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
For a pretty sick job, honestly. If he gets kicked to the number two booth, it's cut then 70%. So it would just be $3 million a year if he gets bumped by Tom Brady. The exception, though, he has an out in his contract. If Brady comes in and another network offers him their lead role, he can just leave Fox for no penalty and go to CBS or NBC or wherever else. There's some sports media nerd stuff for you. Super Bowl halftime. That was the big, I don't know. That's the big attraction other than the game itself. There are millions and millions of people who watch just for the halftime show.
Yes, it got better ratings in the game.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I mean,
118.7 million tuned in for the halftime show.
Yeah, I understand it. I get it. Not everyone likes sports, which is wild, but some people really don't. But they do like Rihanna, or they like entertainment or whatever. Thoughts on the show?
Every single one of those songs was a heater.
Yeah.
Absolute heat rock of a song. And she could have done another, I think they said she went through like 11 or 12 songs in 14 minutes. She could have done another set with 11 or 12 completely different songs, and all of the songs would also have been weapons grade heaters.
Yeah.
Like, all of those songs are good. Set aside whatever you thought of the performance, of the dancing, of the spectacle, whatever it was. You know, you're never going to make everybody happy with that or with the performance. Those songs are all very good. Like, those songs are undeniable. Hit after hit after hit. And that's all. Like, Rihanna's whole thing is that, Like, if you know anything about her and have seen her perform or seen her in like music videos, her whole thing is, I'm way too cool for this.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of just her whole style, her whole
aura.
Yes. So yeah, she went out and did that. Like, I'm too cool for this. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to bring anybody else out here with me. I got 12 propane heaters on deck for you in these 14 minutes. I'm going to do it on a lift that looks like something out of Super Mario Brothers. Enjoy these hits.
Yeah, she's battling Donkey Kong and Captain Falcon, the final destination in Super Smash Bros. That's what it looked like.
Also, I do have a special guest in this performance. My unborn child.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people were getting up and talking about that. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's post-pregnancy, but I don't know.
No, she is. That was
it is.
No,
it
her
is
publicist confirmed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
you got to walk, especially as a male. You kind of got to walk that fine line.
Yeah, because I'm not going to criticize how someone looks.
But also, it was a 100% agreement in the at the Lucero house watch party. Oh yeah, she is with child.
Yeah,
and it was confirmed by her publicist after the show. So
good for her.
Yeah, given all that, she seems happy. She didn't go out there like there's no new music. She might never record another album. She gave you 6 bangers, all timers, in like a 7-year span when it comes to albums. Like, all of those songs are great. Even if you didn't have to be a fan of the dancing or the production or whatever it is, all of those songs rule. Like, those are just great songs that she came out with. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the music.
She played Work and Pour It Up. That's all I wanted. That's all I needed, all I wanted. And I approved. I was pretty solid. Not my favorite halftime show ever, but I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Any commercials stand out to you?
Yeah, my favorite commercial of the night was the Bud Light commercial with this music. The iconic Cisco hold music.
I got so triggered by this song when that commercial started playing.
Listen, so it's Miles Teller and his real life wife.
Okay, it was his real wife.
Yeah,
okay.
That's his real life wife. And they're dancing to this song, which, by the way, has a name. It's called Opus Number 1, which I did not know.
Me either.
It's used primarily on the Cisco telephone platform.
Oh, okay.
And you talk about a propane heater of a song. Opus Number 1 is it. They're in their living room and they're dancing and drinking Bud Light. I mean to tell you, I've been on hold to this song many, many times. I think we've all had that experience. I've danced to this in my living room, stone cold sober.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, that was a pretty good one. I liked the Pepsi Zero ads with Ben Stiller and Steve Martin, where they were alternating between acting and not acting. They're like, is it actually good or am I acting? Guess you'll have to find out. I thought those were pretty good.
Yeah.
Ben Stiller pouring a Pepsi all over his head was pretty funny.
It was nice to see Zoolander again.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of famous people in ads this year reprising old characters.
Yeah.
That worked to a certain extent.
The Diddy one was pretty funny, I thought.
Yeah, with the jingles that weren't jingles.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. I liked my wife liked the Jeep one with all of the exotic animals. They're doing the electric slide.
Oh, yeah.
All the jungle animals, the goat at the end. That was kind of cool. I enjoyed the Amazon commercial where the dog chewed everything up when nobody was in the house. So they got the dog a friend.
Yeah.
You think they're going to buy him a kennel, but now they got him a friend. They
went directly from, what was it, Mahomes getting injured to the commercial for dog food with the dog that was getting older.
Yeah.
That was too much. I think it was Bill Barnwell who tweeted, like, I was not prepared for this emotional swing.
One other really good one. I'm a sucker for Al Pacino's speech at the end of Any Given Sunday, and apparently Serena Williams can deliver it as well.
Yeah,
for Remy Martin cognac.
How about that? How about the Crown Royal commercial with the Foo Fighters in it?
Yes.
Fun little Easter egg. There's talking about Canada and all that. There's a picture of James Naismith, famous Canadian, in the ad.
Yes.
Of him standing in Lawrence, Kansas.
Huh.
How about that? His KU days, not his I'm from Canada days. Also, the Ben Affleck one was pretty funny.
Yeah,
that was the first one of the night.
Yes, him at working the counter at Dunkin'.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was kind of the theme. A lot of famous people in commercials. Tony Romo was in like 3 different commercials.
Yeah, he was.
Also, I want to know if anybody else had this same experience. So we all know that like most of the other networks have like a proprietary streaming service, like NBC has Peacock, which they didn't add. CBS has Paramount Plus, they didn't add. So Fox doesn't have like a subscription one with like subscription programming and their offerings, but they do have Tubi. And Tubi ran an ad where they made it look like your television had been switched to like maybe your Fire Stick or your Roku, and that you had selected the Tubi app and you were scrolling. And I got yelled at. I got yelled at on the couch in the man cave. Dan, what are you doing? Dan, did you do that? No, I didn't do a damn thing. Tubi put me on Front Street, made me look bad at my Super Bowl party. So I want to know if anybody else had the same experience when that Tubi ad came on the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
the fourth quarter of a classic Super Bowl, and I'm getting yelled at because Tubi made it look like I turned on my Roku. Anybody else have that experience? Please say yes.
I got confused because not only did they do that, and they looked like they were about to play Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and my wife went, "Oh, great choice." But then
we got 3 texters, all from the 785, saying, "Yes, I did too. My kids yelled, 'What did you do to the remote?'" And then another one said, "I yelled at my kids."
That's tremendous. Well, it went straight from looking like it had turned something on to then a different commercial, and I thought, wait, is this all the same thing? Like, is this the same commercial or what? I messed with my brain.
I was really mad.
That's probably the most memorable one of the weekend, though.
Yeah, no joke, right? We all had the same shared experience getting mad at Tubi.
One final thought about the commercials. If you scanned the QR code to watch the full roast of Mr. Peanut, seek help. You need a professional in your life. Nobody in their damn mind is going to go say, "Oh, I got to watch the roast guy." What's his name?
Jeffrey Ross.
Jeffrey Ross. Yeah, who I always say is the owner of the Dolphins. No one is going to say, "I need to watch more of this guy insulting a cartoon peanut."
Yeah, that's what I need. I want to watch 20 minutes of peanut jokes on my phone.
They weren't even funny. None of them were good. You could have actually been mean to him. No. The funniest one was when he roasted himself and said, "Wow, Planters really should have killed me off." Also one of the weirdest ad campaigns ever.
Yes.
Just advertise peanuts, man. I don't need Mr. Peanut having personality. Give him a top hat and be done with it. Jeez. We got to take one more break. We got more 580 Sports Talk coming up after this. Brendan and Dan with you, 548 on 580 Sports Talk on this championship victory Monday. Appreciate you guys spending some time with us. Don't forget that coming up at the top of the hour, we've got the 580 Preps High School Girls Basketball Coaches Club. 7 city coaches joining me this evening to talk all about the final 2 weeks of the regular season for high school basketball. Incredible to think we are already at that point. That is coming up starting at the top of the hour right here on 580 WIBW. Should we hit on college hoops real quick?
Yeah, we may as well.
KU and K-State both played this weekend. Let's start with the good. KU whooped Oklahoma. The start of that game was hideous. It was so bad.
Yeah, it was not nice.
And with about 6 minutes to go in the first half, KU took the lead and then poured it on. Jalen Wilson was awesome. You got a lot of contributors from the starting lineup. But KU might have something in Ernest Uday, and not even like a long-term piece like I have thought he would be. Thought, yeah, he'll be good one day. He's played out of his mind in the last couple of weeks. He might have something for them right now.
They don't ask a lot from the 5 spot this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just need somebody to come in and spell KJ Adams for 5 to 10 minutes a night and not be overwhelmed on defense and finish the occasional lob. And Ernest Uday can do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
What he's been much more adept at that has been really surprising is how much he's been impactful defensively. Not necessarily as a rim protector, though he's had his moments there, but out on the perimeter, helping defend the pick and roll with active hands. Like, there are things he needs to learn. There were times he's a little over aggressive, and that's going to get him in some foul trouble. But he's got active hands. He's got good anticipation. He's creating deflections, creating some turnovers out there on the perimeter. And, yeah, he's more than capable of finishing that lob. He had a couple of lob dunks. It looked like Udoka Azubuike was back, the way he was finishing some of those lob dunks. Yeah, he looks like a player for right now, a useful piece. And for the long haul, that's looking like a guy who you can build around in the post, the way that his predecessors, McCormick and Azubuike and so many others in a great lineage of KU big men, have been.
Yeah, it's a different team when he's out there, and you can play the matchups better with him and Adams, so KJ isn't always stuck guarding guys he's a tough matchup with. I mean, that's going to make life easier for everyone for KU. The downside of the weekend, K-State lost to Texas Tech, and they played terribly. Noel did not have a good game. His numbers really only looked good because he hit a bunch of free throws. Keontae Johnson had his worst game at K-State, which is okay when you have it once in a while because usually you've played so well this year, and he's been great, but you can't have those two having off nights on the same night.
At the same time, yeah, you can't survive that and 23 turnovers.
And that's the thing, like, stop turning the ball over.
Yeah, the difference, I think they averaged like 13 turnovers a game in their wins, and in their losses, I think that number's up around 18. And that's the whole ball game. It's just about valuing possession, valuing the basketball. And look, there are a lot of teams in this league that are really good at turning you over, beating you up and turning you over. And the way they play defensively means they're going to force a lot of turnovers. Like, you're not going to go through a game in the Big 12 and only have like 8 turnovers. That's just the defense in the league is too good.
Yeah,
you got teams like Iowa State and Texas Tech and TCU and Baylor who are really good. KU's pretty good at this too, speeding you up and getting you turned over. You're going to have some turnovers, but you have to play a little less recklessly with the basketball and make sure you're getting shots up, because Jerome Tang has said this, the margin for error is not big enough for this K-State team to turn the ball over that much and have your stars not play well and still beat anybody in the league. So they got to get better. I've seen, it's getting kind of ugly on social media. Not ugly, I guess, but a little harsh, I think, on Marquise Noel. Some fans are turning on him a little bit. And he hasn't played great. It's been a 3-week stretch where he hasn't been at his best like he was early in Big 12 play. But I think a lot of it has come down to his shooting. He hasn't shot well, so he's tried, I think, overcompensate for that with his playmaking ability. And he's trying to do too much. He just needs to have a good shooting game, and I think things will round back into form for Marquise.
I saw some wild reaction. I mean, K-State's struggling right now, but it'll be all right.
Yeah, people talking about benching Marquise Noel. Like, what?
Chill. K-State's going to be okay. K-State was probably playing above level for a while, but that level is still pretty high. Don't sweat yet. We've got to take one final timeout. We've got a Super Bowl final word coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk on this first day after a Super Bowl championship with the final word, Dan.
Man, salute to Andy Reid, a guy who is one of the all-time great coaches in NFL history, and now that is indisputable. One of the good people in the history of the NFL as well. I thought The Ringer made a great point about Andy Reid in their article, and The Ringer put out some great stuff today about the Chiefs and Mahomes and Reid, and you should read all of it. But the point they made about Andy Reid is sometimes it's just a simple point. Andy Reid loves his players, and his players love him back, and that's why his teams have succeeded. That's why the Chiefs are champions.
And Kansas City Chiefs fans sure love Patrick Mahomes, and his teammates love Patrick Mahomes, and his coaches love Patrick Mahomes as well. He is the one. If there is ever going to be another greatest of all time, a contender for that title, it's the guy who wears number 15 for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's in a point right now where he's infallible. I mean, there's no diminishing the accomplishments. He's already had 2 MVPs in his first 6 years in the league, really 5. He barely played that first year. He's won 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. He snapped the curse of winning MVP and then not winning a Super Bowl. He has been incredible. There is no other word. Excellent, incredible, amazing. All of them come up short of just how good he has been. He's yours, Chiefs fans. So make sure you appreciate it. It won't last forever, but thankfully it's going to last at least a handful more years. There's Dynasty Talk next. We'll talk about that coming up later this week on 580 Sports Talk. For Dan, I'm Brendan. We'll join you again coming up tomorrow at 3 o'clock for more 580 Sports Talk. But up next, the 580 Preps High School Coaches Club.